Welcome back to the channel. This is Trendy Storm and you are watching second part of What If Kid Naruto Befriended Kurama. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to this channel. Now wasting no time, let's start the story.
A knock on his door startled Sarutobi, who looked up. Unless it was an urgent matter, no one called on him at this hour. He cleared his desk and called out, "Enter." The end of a cane emerged as the door opened. Shimura Danzo followed the cane. As his old friend moved to the chair in front of his desk, Sarutobi stayed seated and observed. "It has been some time, Danzo. What do you want to talk about? Can't an old man visit a friend to talk about the old days and pass some time?" Sarutobi's eyebrow went up. "Fair enough. I'll get to the point, then. I gather that you assigned a C rank to the Jinchuriki earlier today. He is scheduled to leave the village tomorrow morning, isn't he?" Sarutobi lit his pipe and put it in his mouth. He inhaled a few times before glaring at his visitor. "I assumed that was a rhetorical question." Danzo gripped his cane tighter. "Sarcasm doesn't befit you, my friend. Get to the point then, Danzo. I am in no mood for games." "Very well then, as you wish. I do not think it is wise to let him out of the village. Not without proper protection. I suggest that you remove him from this mission." Sarutobi remained quiet for some time. "I am sure that you have kept tabs on the boy." "Yes," was the silent response after a few seconds. "Then you know of the boy's growth. You know that he has inherited his father's talent. I will not stunt his growth by confining him to the village. I do not intend to turn him into a weapon to be used only in wars. I believe that he will become one of the greatest and trusted shinobi of this village." After a long moment of silently staring at Satobi, Danzo got up and moved toward the door. At the doorway, he stopped and looked back at his adversary. "You and I have disagreed on the path this village should follow on many occasions. I believe that this is the final straw. Do not expect any company operation from me in the future. This is as foolhardy as anything you may have done before, but the timing could not be worse. We have seen a troubled peace for the past 20 years. Things are simmering, are soon going to come to a head. Do not regret your actions when we arrive at that point." "I disagree. You and I have always had a different perception of strength. You always saw it as brute power, but I tend to think of it as something else." Danzo sneered. "I believe that you have a foolish belief in the will of fire. Yes. Like you said yourself, things are simmering. Your methods should definitely not be used in times like this. Rather, they would be detrimental to this fragile peace we have." Sarutobi got to his feet and met Danzo's gaze. "Danzo, I wish that we could work together once again. Our paths been diverging for many years now. My time is nearing its end. I can feel it in my bones. I do not wish to die with one of my oldest friends as an enemy." "Well then, you will have to die with your wish unfulfilled. The time for us to work together is long past." Behind Danzo, Sarutobi saw the door slam. He let out a sigh. It was in situations like these that he detested his age. When you were 20, everything was so much easier. Naruto put down a basic treatise on Fuinjutsu, after taking a quick look at his clock. Now was his moment to move. He got to his feet and fastened his holsters and weapons. He turned to his window, shouldering his pack. He formed 9 cage buncheons by joining his hands in a single seal. He remarked, "You guys know what to do." With a nod, his clones filed out the window. Calmly, he followed. Sakura, Sasuke, and Tazuna awaited their other 2 teammates at Konoha's gate. To avoid the stench of the man's alcohol, Sakura and Sasuke were standing a considerable distance away from Tazuna. Unaware of the team's disapproval of his alcoholism, Tazuna was tapping his foot impatiently. "Where are those 2? We were supposed to have left 2 hours ago," shouted Tazuna. Katetsu piped from his booth, "Those 2 are always late. You'll be lucky if they get here within the next hour." "What?" Azumo from Katetsu's side said, "Yup. Those 2 are perpetually late. You could say that it's one of their specialties." Tazuna questioned Sakura and Sasuke, "Is this true?" "Yes. It's true," Sakura said glumly. "But why shouldn't shinobi like yourself be punctual? And if you know that they were going to be late, then why do you 2 turn up on time?" "Don't ask me. Ask them. Both of them are completely crazy. Who knows what goes on in their heads? I come on time because the thought of sinking down to their level sickens me," Sakura replied. "Ah, Sakura-chan. You hurt this poor man with those words of yours." They all turned to see Kakashi reading his book while strolling casually in their direction. "Oh, shut it. The day you feel guilty for being late is the day the world ends." Sasuke grunted. Suddenly, between them, Naruto appeared, rubbing his head sheepishly. Sorry I'm late, guys. For the life of me, I couldn't find any socks. You're wearing sandals, Tazuna announced. Exactly, like I said, I couldn't find any socks. Tazuna gazed incredulously at the blonde. Calm down, everyone. Now that we're all here, let's get started, Kakashi said in an attempt to defuse the situation. When he noticed that his words appeared to be having an impact, he was happy. It went more slowly than he had anticipated. Tazuna moved slowly. Incredibly slow when you contrasted his speed with what would have been possible without him. Naruto, however, had no complaints. He had never left the village before, and he didn't want to spoil the moment by complaining. As they moved slowly closer to their destination, he remained vigilant and calmly took in the sights. The bridge. Builder Tazuna needed to be escorted back to his wave country home. The man apparently feared for his life because the route was rife with bandits. Naruto was unaware of the initial circumstances behind his journey to Konoha. He wasn't especially interested in finding out, either. The man was determined to stay drunk all the time. The man was carrying an incredible amount of alcohol. He didn't think real combat would be part of the mission. Since most bandits were aware of their proper position in the hierarchy, they tended to shun shinobi like the plague. A couple of bandits were more than capable of defeating even a raw genin. Naturally, the first day went by without any problems. The following day, when they made the decision to halt and set up camp, they had just arrived at the edge of the vast forest that encircled their village. There was no reason at all for them to travel through the night as the sun was sinking. They were led straight to a small clearing that was next to a small brook by Kakashi, who was obviously familiar with the terrain. The ideal location for camping. Given a shinobi's propensity to leave no trace, it was understandable that there were no signs of any prior camps in the same area. One of the first outdoor lessons they learned in the academy was how to pack up a camp without leaving any signs of occupation. Soon a little fire was burning happily in the center of the clearing. The smoke was harmless because they were still so near their village. There were numerous outposts strewn throughout the forest, and the village conducted routine patrols within it. They started warming their rations while huddled close to the fire. Travel ration kits were given to every shinobi who went on a mission. These kits were small, light, and gave the shinobi enough energy and nourishment to function well in the field. They were made to be used in the field and could even be eaten cold or on the battlefield. The village also supplied the kits to civilians in case they were part of the mission. The same was true of Tazuna. However, they also tasted terrible. Something that, much to his dismay, Naruto found. He spat out, "Blair. This tastes like dog shit," he exclaimed, taking out his canteen and swigging water to wash the taste away. Kakashi inquired inquisitively, "Does it? I've been eating it for so many years, I no longer notice the taste. I'm also interested in how you happen to know what dog shit tastes like." Naruto gave him a fierce look. "I didn't mean it literally. How the fuck do you guys not constantly complain out this?" "Well, as far as I know, it was the Naidame who introduced these, and apparently, everyone was so scared of him that nobody told him how bad it actually was." Typical. All the Hokage seem to have no common sense, and what about after the old man came into power? Well, I guess there might have been complaints, but I'm not sure. Most probably everyone was too used to it by then to actually care enough to complain. Besides, there is no obligation for us to make use of the village rations. You're free to lug about your own food, if you wish it. The village doesn't mind as long it doesn't get you killed. Naruto paused his pack and started to ruffle inside it, saying, "Thank Kami, I came prepared then." "Don't tell me," Kakashi said in a submissive tone. "Yup," Naruto exclaimed, taking out a box of instant ramen. Kakashi simply shook his head and sighed. "You'll never change." Up until now, the other three group members had been silently watching the action. With trepidation, Sakura now said, "What do you mean, sensei? This idiot literally lives on ramen. Eats it for breakfast, lunch and dinner. Has been doing it for years." Sakura questioned incredulously, "Really?" "Yup." Naruto grinned while holding the box over the flames. Tazuna questioned, "Don't you grow tired of the taste?" "Never. I just love it. But, it's just ramen. How can you like it that much?" replied Sakura. Sakura was met with a glare as Naruto's head snapped up. He hissed, "Take that back. Ramen is the god food." Sakura should have backed off because she had just started to get scared of Naruto. Rather, all she saw was someone claiming that ramen was the greatest food ever, and that was dumb in her books. She shot back, "That's the dumbest thing I've heard." Naruto's eyes went wide with surprise. "You take that back." "No, I won't." After glaring at her for a few more seconds, Naruto appeared to lose his confidence in the face of her scrutiny. How can you not like ramen, Sakura-chan? He sighed. I don't mind ramen, but I will never accept that it's the best there is. I accept your challenge. When we get back to Konoha, I will take you to the shrine of ramen that is Ichiraku. There you will bask in the heavenly glory of ramen and will partake its true badassness. And there you shall join the faith. Sakura simply looked at him without saying anything. She questioned Kakashi, is he always like this? Why are you asking me? Well, you seem to have known him for a long time. You're the one who said he's been eating ramen for years. Well, Kakashi said slowly. Let's say we've been passing acquaintances for a long time, but I wouldn't say we've known each other well for very long. Sakura simply let out a sigh. Will the two of you ever give us a direct response? Naruto and Kakashi shrugged. After a few minutes, the blonde stood at the stream's edge and cleaned his hands. He picked up his canteen from the ground next to him, dipped it in the clear, sparkling water, and filled it up. He was just about done when he heard two gentle footsteps behind him and turned to see that it was Kakashi. Hi, sensei, Naruto, a word if you might. Sure, he said, taking a gulp of water. How many of your clones are out there chasing us? There was no doubt that Kakashi would have noticed his small gambit, but Naruto didn't even blink. 8. 8? Are you certain? I thought there were more. Well, if my clones produced any more, I wouldn't know. I didn't advise them to refrain. I see, Kakashi said, nodding. And why are your clones encircling us? Scouting. It's better to be safe than sorry, I understand, and don't you believe you ought to have told the team about that? Well, I knew you would notice right away so. That's not the same as telling your team. Naruto shrugged. He had no desire to show off his abilities to his teammates, particularly not to Sasuke, who seemed to get even more irate every time he did. Kakashi let out a sigh. I would have expected at least you to understand the meaning of teamwork. Look away from me, please. This is reciprocal. Those two really don't seem interested in interacting with me. In particular, Mr. Brooder. Kakashi let out a sigh. I definitely don't deserve such an irritating team. Naruto shrugged once more, determined not to allow Kakashi to blame him for that. Will you at least try it with Sakura? It appears that she is growing accustomed to you. Naruto gave another shrug. Kakashi turned around and shook his head. Naruto called out, I'll take first watch, as they made their way back to their camp. Kakashi jerked. After a few hours, one of Naruto's clones heard some muffled sounds coming from the direction of their camp. He immediately pushed himself to a standing position on the branch he had been keeping his vigil from and pushed some chakra into his ears. The noise persisted, so he made a hand sign and made another clone. He left the clone behind to keep his position, and he headed towards the source. He tried to locate the source in his mind, and since it appeared to be coming from a location only a few hundred feet away from their camp, he skipped through the treetops in silence and went to investigate. It was coming from a clearing that looked a lot like the one where they were camped. It was possible that this was another common place for passing shinobi teams to camp. Without a doubt, Sakura was the source of the disturbance, as she appeared to be training under the light of a small fire. This was not the best time for her to be doing this, as she was supposed to be keeping watch for enemies, but he couldn't really blame her. It must have been her first time keeping watch out in the field, and it was understandable that she would get bored. He saw her raise 6 kunai, 3 in each hand, cross her arms in front of her, and launch them at the tree she was aiming for, but only 3 of them struck the mark. He yelled, "You're doing it wrong." She was startled by his voice, so she instinctively spun around and threw a kunai at him. Before she could identify him, the blade had already left her hand, and she watched in horror as her weapon flew at her teammate. Naruto, on the other hand, showed no concern and calmly pulled the kunai out of the air as soon as it was within range. After calming herself with a deep breath and placing a hand on her heart, Sakura glared up at him. "You frightened me. What do you mean that I'm not doing it correctly? How did you accomplish that?" She let out a shrill cry. Lightly, Naruto leapt to the ground. "I apologize for that. And will you please slow down? I don't understand what you just said." Sakura inhaled deeply and calmly once more. "How did you manage to capture my kunai in that manner?" At last, she inquired. "You made a poor throw. Even if it had struck, the damage would have been minimal." His teammate simply hung her head in disgust, indicating that he had said the wrong thing. "Hey, no concerns. Solving that is very simple. You simply need to put on a little muscle." This time, his teammate muttered her answer. "What was that?" Sakura stated, "I don't want to bulk up," with much more conviction this time. "Why not?" She simply gave him a glare, and Naruto was perplexed. "You're a true moron, aren't you? What are you saying?" "I'm a girl. I am aware of that. Okay. I need to maintain my figure if I ever hope to date Sasuke-kun. After merely staring at her, Naruto turned and walked away. He called, "Good night," and left. Wait, Sakura screamed, "Tell me what I'm doing wrong." No, why not? Because what you just said was an insult to everything I've been doing in the past few years. Naruto then leapt into the trees and fled, but his teammate apparently didn't understand, as she also leapt to her feet and followed him. Hold on, what did I say incorrectly? I didn't intend to offend you. Naruto halted and allowed his teammate to catch up to him after landing on the limb of an ancient oak tree. Alright, Sakura-san, I have a question for you. I assume that you hope to start a family in the future. Sakura gave a nod. What sort of man are you looking for? He inquired. He received the response almost immediately. He ought to be attractive, but also kind and considerate. It's funny. Good with kids. Fantastic. And does any of those apply to your beloved Sasuke-kun? He is attractive, to be sure, but does he possess any of the other attributes you listed? So why are you pursuing him so hard? His teammate didn't stand up for her beloved for once. Look, you've become a shinobi. Kill or be killed is our job. The mission is what we live for. To keep the village safe. To put yourself in danger just to impress a man is incredibly foolish. Come of age. Sasuke-kun, your beloved, has far more ambitious goals than dating women. Furthermore, he won't be changing anytime soon. Sakura-san, people don't change. You had better stop trying to use love or something similar to change him. Look, the village is depending on you to finish the mission and to be strong. Killing bandits is your job. Not fall in love with a man. You must risk your life in order to train. If not, you will simply perish in the upcoming missions. And I would really rather not be a witness to that. Please, Sakura-chan, mature, come of age. It wouldn't do if the original Naruto didn't know what his clone had just done, so he turned and leapt away, creating another clone as soon as he was out of earshot and spreading himself out. Since Kakashi was given the final shift, it was he who woke them up the following morning. He was the one stuck with the consequences of the idiot's actions, and Naruto moaned as he slowly sat up. It was always painful to get a rush of new information right as he woke up, especially when his clone had already pulled a real dick move on him. Anything he had accomplished with Sakura was now a complete failure. Later in the day, Naruto led the group through the forest, followed closely by Tazuna and then by the trio of Kakashi, Sasuke, and Sakura. As was to be expected, they had not spoken to each other during the day, and now that they were outside the protection of Konoha's forest, they truly needed to be vigilant because they were now in bandit territory. Given the monotony of the mission, Naruto's mind had essentially shut down, and his body was just moving mechanically forward. Normally, a shinobi would be in danger if he were in this state of mind in the field, but since he had his clones scouting all around him, he felt justified in letting his mind shut down for a while. As a result, he was taken aback when Kurama's enormous presence unexpectedly entered his thoughts. Naruto, I sense 2 chakra presences right ahead. Naruto took a few moments to process the information. Wait. How did my clones get past them? Easy, they must be superior to your imitations. As his mind went into overdrive, Naruto muttered a curse under his breath, since he had severed Kurama-san's chakra supply. His clones lacked any traces of the Bijuu's chakra, meaning they lacked similar sensing abilities. Because Kurama-san was trapped inside him, his sensing range was extremely limited, not more than 150 feet in any direction. Knowing this, Naruto had placed his scouts around a circle with a radius of 175 feet. Because of this, it was easier for any enemies to get through the gaps, which is what must have happened now. Since bandits lacked the ability to use and shape chakra, Naruto's blood started to race through his body as he realized that there were most likely enemy shinobi nearby. Where? Go straight ahead. 100 feet. In other words, the enemy had camouflaged themselves, and the path they were on was both straight as an arrow and completely empty. Naruto's hands locked behind his lower back, and he started signing to his team using Konoha's traditional sign language, which was another skill taught to them in the academy. It was important to communicate silently on the battlefield, and this was the way to do it. The administration updated the language on a regular basis, and it was quite possible that an enemy village had compromised it. It was the duty of every shinobi in the village to stay up to date with the most recent version, and Naruto really enjoyed doing that. Enemies. 100 feet. Straight ahead, he signed out as quickly as he could, relieved that Tazuna didn't understand, and his fellow genin wouldn't know how he knew that, while Kakashi would know immediately. The old man had undoubtedly briefed him on his skills, and a look back revealed that Sakura had stiffened up and tensed up quite a bit, while Sasuke just looked excited. As he and his group continued walking, Naruto calmly scanned the area for any warning signs. He noticed a small puddle lying about 25 feet away, and since it hadn't rained recently, he looked back and pointed to it with his head. Kakashi nodded back, confirming that it was unquestionably an ambush and that the enemy most likely possessed some sweetened jutsu skills. Carefully avoiding the puddle, Naruto and his group continued walking. Two shadowy figures emerged from the water as soon as they passed it. Masks were placed over the faces of the enemies, who were both wearing long black cloaks and carrying strange claw-shaped gauntlets that were connected by a chain of blades. Slashed Kiri Hite. Atesh were strapped to both of their heads, and the missing nins from Kiri lunged at the Konoha shinobi without a sound, spreading themselves out and making the chain taut, effectively turning it into a lethal weapon. The enemy's eyes widened in shock as Naruto was the first to react, turning their ambush against them and advancing on them in a flash. He stepped under the first reflex thrust and ducked to the left to avoid being skewered by the chain. Before his assailant could turn, Naruto swung his blade and stabbed the back of his assailant's thigh, causing his sword to pierce right through the man's leg and emerge from the other side with a burst of blood. The enemy fell to the ground with a small grunt of pain, and the second enemy disengaged the now useless chain and charged Naruto. Naruto dropped his blade and ducked backwards to avoid the bonsai attack, a move that was rendered completely useless a moment later, as a kunai neatly embedded itself into his throat before the assailant could get close enough. The man collapsed heavily with a gurgle and a spurt of blood. Maizu. He gingerly sat up, took off his gauntlet, and started to flash through some hand signs after his partner cried out in agony. However, before he could finish his jutsu, Kakashi appeared behind him and knocked him out with the butt of a kunai. Naruto yelled, "Nice throw, Sasuke," as he approached to get his sword. Who are these guys and why did they attack us? If he had looked, he would have seen Sakura and Tazuna staring at him with a mixture of disgust and awe. They're definitely not bandits, he said, drawing his sword out of the missing nin's thigh. Naruto knelt down and started wiping the blood off his blade with the missing nin's cloak. Sasuke, on the other hand, appeared to be content for once, and when he looked, he saw that Sakura had turned very pale and was breathing heavily, as though she was trying not to vomit. Who knew that all the guy needed was a little murder? After waiting for Naruto to sheath his weapon, Kakashi walked over and used his foot to roll the enemy over so he could examine his face. He then reached into his pouch and took out a battered book, opened it, and began turning the pages as though he was trying to find something. At last, he found the page he was looking for and started reading. Well, judging by the descriptions given here, I would say that these two are the demon brothers of Kiri, Chunin level missing nins. Book of Bingo? Naruto, a little envious, inquired. Yup, Kakashi nodded. Naruto muttered, I have to get myself one of those. But Kakashi turned around and gave Tazuna a wilting gaze. It's a C rank mission. Instead of shinobi, we were meant to meet bandits. You misled us. Without a doubt, these two are pursuing you. They have nothing at all to gain by pursuing us. Tazuna retreated and withered under Kakashi's stare, saying, I'm sorry I lied but I had to do it. A man named Gato is suckling my country dry. The bridge I am building must be completed if we are to survive. I couldn't place some orders here today, so I had to travel to Konoha. Gato wouldn't let it happen. My nation's citizens live in abject poverty. Anything more than a C rank was beyond our means, and I needed to return. Gato? The shipping tycoon Gato? Yes, he is that. He has totally destroyed the economy and has a monopoly on all trade in my nation. Our only chance is the bridge. That might be the case, but this goes beyond the scope of our mission. This team is genin. It is not permitted for them to fight other shinobi. I apologize, but we must leave you now and head back to Konoha. With wide eyes, Tazuna said, please don't do that. He pleaded, you are our only hope. Gato's men will kill me if you leave me now. My grandson and young daughter will never see me again. Gato will become the wave's daimyo and the bridge will never be challenged. Thousands will be harmed. Sensei. We can't leave him right now, even though I know it's against the rules and unprofessional. Naruto stepped in and said, we must keep him safe. Even Sasuke wants to continue, doesn't he? Sasuke gave a nod. Kakashi sighed and shook his head. Closing his eye, he lapsed into thought. Continuing the mission would be against protocol and highly unprofessional of him. Especially so, given that the enemy in question was one of unknown nature. However, the fact remained that his team was a complete mess. The only reason he had taken up this mission was in the hope that they would improve as a unit. Sooner or later, his team was going to come up against an opponent that outclassed them in every way. And they would have to work as a cohesive unit to survive. It was only inevitable, and the sooner that happened the better. If and when that happened, it was better that they go into the fight prepared and aware of the enemy. He would be able to get information of their next adversary from the shinobi they had captured. Facing up against an unknown entity was far worse. He knew it was a huge risk, but it made sense for them to go on. It was the only hope he had of teaching them anything. He had realized quite soon that the shield Sasuke had erected around him was not going to go down due to anything he said or did. After a minute of deep contemplation, he turned to Tazuna and said, "If this mission ends badly, the Hokage is going to have his head." Kakashi shrugged. "I've always enjoyed taking risks, so what's the fun in life otherwise?" "Well, Tazuna, it appears that my students have been persuaded by your heartbreaking tale. We'll get it done. But take caution. I will order a retreat if I ever think this mission is too risky. Do you have that, guys? Now, I'm going to interrogate this guy," Kakashi said, bending down towards the still unconscious enemy after his students had all murmured their agreement. "Knowing who else Gato employs will be helpful. You three, pay close attention. One day, you may have to do this alone." Sakura and Tazuna gasped when Kakashi pulled up his Hite.8 and revealed his Sharingan eye, but Sasuke appeared shocked, as if he had been unaware that Kakashi was the only other Sharingan user still in the village. Kakashi awakened the missing Nin by striking him in the face. "Look into my eye," was his straightforward command. The missing Nin obeyed without thinking, and almost immediately his face was devoid of all emotion as though he were under hypnosis. A drop of saliva escaped from the corner of his mouth, and he began speaking in a monotone. "After his failed coup attempt, my brother and I fled with Zabuza, Sama and Haku. Sama. He agreed to work for Gato to earn the money for another attempt." His eyes rolled in their sockets as he finished speaking, and he passed out. "We were told to kill the bridge builder and any shinobi guarding him. How in the world can I possibly take anything away from that? You cast a genjutsu with your Sharingan." The whole learn from this nonsense was pointless. Naruto let out a cry of outrage. Kakashi flinched and ignored him, then turned back to his hostage and scowled. His genjutsu hadn't performed as he had hoped. He had requested a lot more details. Battle tactics, Zabuza's strengths and weaknesses, the skill set of this Haku persona that could only mean one thing. He focused his Sharingan on the man's head, and what he saw validated his suspicions. "He appears to have a mental barrier of some sort. I think it will start to kill him if I continue to question him. The only person who can extract more information from him is a professional interrogator." This man was referring to the demon of Kiri, Zabuza Momochi. "He is a very strong and dangerous Junin, and he is one of the 7 swordsmen of the mist," Kakashi declared angrily as he covered his eye and rose to his feet. "We shouldn't be dating a man like this in the first place, but we can't break our word now, can we? I want you all to avoid getting involved if he attacks us. He is far superior to you. Naruto, even you. Tazuna needs to be protected, all 3 of you. I can't fight Zabuza and defend Tazuna at the same time, and he might have allies. You get it?" Kakashi said, then waited for their reply once more. After they muttered their agreement, he said, "Good. Now give me a few minutes while I deal with these 2, and then we'll get moving again," he said. After taking out an empty storage scroll and sealing the 2 brothers inside, he cut his thumb with a kunai, made a few hand gestures, and slapped his hand on the ground before a little dog emerged with a puff of smoke. "Hi, Pakun. Please return to Konoha with this." Kakashi held out the scroll for his summons and said, "Tell them no backup is needed." Pakun glanced around and saw the 3 genin. "Is Kakashi on your team, then?" Sniffling the air, Pakun said. "He talks," Sakura and Naruto yelled. "I talk, of course. You brats, I am a summons. Not your average roadside mutt." He jumped off after putting the scroll in his mouth and waving a paw goodbye. After observing Pakun depart, Kakashi returned his attention to his group. "Could you turn on your Sharingan, Sasuke?" Sasuke said, "Yes," with a hint of pride in his tone. "All right. When we get to the bridge, I'll demonstrate how to cast genjutsu with it. You will require it." Sasuke grinned and Naruto shuddered, finding his teammates' expression to be quite unnerving. That evening when they eventually arrived at the seashore, the sun had just set. A sizable body of water separated the land of the waves from the fire country, and they would have to travel by boat the next day, which could take up to 7 or 8 hours, depending on the tides and wind speed. Tazuna glanced around to orient himself before pointing to the south. My bridge is roughly 250 kilometers away down there. Right now, I know where we are. I have a friend who lives a few hours away from the coast. He will transport us across the ocean. Is he reliable? Kakashi inquired. Yes, he wants to return home as soon as possible because he is one of the few people who was able to flee Gado's rule. He will undoubtedly assist us. Kakashi nodded and said, we'll stop here for the time being. I'll take your word for it. We should be able to reach the land of the waves by evening tomorrow if we depart before sunrise. There would be no fires this time, and everyone nodded and started to camp. They quickly finished their cold rations, a meal that no one particularly enjoyed, not even Naruto, who understood the value of stealth and didn't complain. After their meal was finished and cleared away, Kakashi coughed, drawing everyone's attention. Please, Tazuna-san, could you step back a little? We must talk about our course of action for tomorrow. Tazuna's relationship with the shinobi assigned to protect him was already strained, so he didn't appear particularly pleased to be ordered away, but he didn't have the nerve to argue about it. Kakashi started talking after Tazuna had left the area. Two names were mentioned by the shinobi we questioned. Haku and Zabuza. This Haku person is someone I've never heard of. Additionally, he is not mentioned in the bingo book. I double-checked. There are two possible interpretations for that. That he doesn't exist. Alternatively, he is good enough to be excluded from all bingo books. Considering that he is with Zabuza, I lean toward thinking it's the latter. Because we don't know what we're up against, we're essentially at a disadvantage. Nevertheless, the enemy faces the same issue. Therefore, it is imperative that we arrive ready. Let me take care of Zabuza when the fight starts. That is crucial. You three have absolutely no chance against him because he is an elite Junin. I want all three of you to encircle and guard Tazuna. I want Sasuke and Naruto to double-team the second enemy if there is one. You two ought to be able to deal with him as long as he is not Junin level as well. You'll remain behind and keep watching over Tazuna, Sakura. That is crucial. Avoid leaving him at all costs. Finally, I want you three to take Tazuna and return to Konoha if my battle with Zabuza goes badly. This is my ultimate choice. My top priority is always my team's safety. You get it? I suppose we should go back right away if none of you agree with this. His students didn't respond to him verbally. I take that to mean that everyone is in agreement with me. Excellent. Come on, let's sleep. He called, same watches as last night, and got up to go to his bed. The following evening Tazuna's friend had arrived and was surreptitiously smuggling them into the land of the waves, using the dense fog rolling over the ocean as cover as Naruto padded slowly along the side of the boat as they approached the shore. We're about a 3-hour journey from your house, Tazuna, said the boatman. I'm sorry but I don't dare take you any closer than this. Don't worry, Yamada. As it is, this exceeds my expectations. The rest of his team and their client scurried ashore as quickly as they could and assisted Yamada in pushing off into the fog. Taking advantage of his team's distraction, Naruto slipped away with a simple call of, I'll just have a quick look around to make sure the coast is clear. This will not be forgotten, I promise. Tazuna responded as the boat made land and Naruto slipped ashore. He nodded to them and made 9 cage buncheons as soon as he was out of earshot, feeling incredibly vulnerable without their protection during the brief journey across the water. He waved his hand to scatter his clones and reunited with his team as Yamada was vanishing into the mists. He called, all clear, all right, Kakashi said, nodding. It would be ideal, in my opinion, if we started right away. The sea curves away right about here, Tazuna said, nodding and pointing west. If we cut inland and follow a straight course, we'll make better ground. We'll take your word for it, Kakashi said, nodding. Take the lead. They crossed the ocean once more only an hour or so into the final portion of their journey. See, I told you, Tazuna said, the bay is at its end, we're near. Good, Kakashi said, nodding. Then I believe it's best if we stay vigilant. To be honest, I didn't anticipate getting this far without any opposition. He was certain that Kakashi had not survived this long without being above par at spotting ambushes, since he was much older than the average age of the shinobi workforce of Konoha, and the older a shinobi was, the more dangerous he became. His team nodded and continued on, their senses on high alert, Naruto in particular. He had been annoyed that Demon Brothers had slipped through his circle with such ease, and he had been overconfident in estimating the security of his precaution. The sudden appearance of a bubble of information jolted him out of his reverie. One of his clones had just been destroyed, and based on the information he had just received, his clone had not detected any enemy activity. Naruto snarled, behind us, and spun around just in time to see a massive projectile descending on them. He shouted, "Get down," and jumped, avoiding his own command. Naruto landed and spun, just in time to see Kakashi push the others to the ground, and the giant shuriken flew harmlessly over their heads and embedded itself heavily into a tree trunk. It was only then that he realized it was a really large black sword, with an incredibly long hilt, something he assumed was necessary given the sword's hefty bulk and a semi-circular indentation next to the hilt. Naruto didn't understand the purpose of the two structural anomalies, but his attention was diverted from the blade when its wielder appeared soundlessly, standing two-footed on his enormous sword and glaring down on them with intensity, pinning them down with his bloodlust. When compared to his drawing in the bingo book, Naruto thought he looked even more menacing in real life. He glanced back to see that Sakura and Sasuke had positioned themselves around Tazuna and had drawn their weapons. He also noticed that both of their knees were trembling with anxiety and tension, and he could feel his own legs trembling with excitement. "Hitaki Kakashi," said Zabuza. "I did not expect Konoha to send in someone of your capabilities to protect that old drunk." When Tazuna was mentioned, Naruto could hear him gulp. Kakashi moved forward and extended his left hand. Softly, "Get back, Naruto," he said, "leave this to me. Keep your task in mind." Instead, Naruto remained motionless, gazing at the shinobi ahead of them. "Kakashi," Zabuza called once more, "I don't have a dispute with Konoha." Pointing to Tazuna, he declared, "That man is my mission. Hand him over, and drastic measures are not necessary." In response, Kakashi said, "You know that I can't do that." "Ordinarily yes, but with these three brats with you, you're at a disadvantage and you know it." Kakashi just kept his eyes on his opponent without replying. There was a pregnant pause. Zabuza snarled, "Very well then," and gathered his hands in preparation for a jutsu, but Naruto never gave him that chance. As soon as Zabuza raised his hands, Naruto pulled out one of his swords and kicked into top gear, ignoring Kakashi's cries and landing directly beside him on his own blade. Then, using his right foot, he quickly slashed at Zabuza's neck. "Naruto!" "No!" Kakashi screamed and jumped forward. Zabuza was faster than Naruto, so he just swayed backwards to avoid his attack, and in an instant, a kunai flashed towards Naruto's heart, and he had no way of avoiding it, and that was exactly what he wanted. Naruto yelled, "Stay back, sensei," as the kunai swung at him. "Nice knowing you," he smiled at Zabuza, who exploded. On the lowest limb of a tree, 100 feet away, the real Naruto gazed at the scene playing out before him. "Bunshin Daibakuha," Naruto smiled, which was an accomplishment he would be proud of for a long time. Based on his teammates' reactions, even they had fallen for it, and even Kakashi. Sensei had failed to recognize that the Naruto who had been traveling with them was not the real one. He brought forth another bunshin with a puff of smoke. "Go," he said. The brat had been right about the number of clones, and the real one must have been following them, buried among the rest of his clones. Kakashi swore under his breath as Naruto's clone exploded, realizing that he had been totally duped and that he would need to keep a much closer watch on the child because he disliked surprises, especially ones that exploded in your face. Before he could react, another blur blasted past him and hurled itself at Zabuza, and a smoking blur arose from the smoke and leapt back towards the sea. "I apologize, sensei. I had to try," shouted his idiot student as he charged at Zabuza with his blades flashing. His student was fast, but not fast enough to catch up with Zabuza before he got to the water. The second he was on water, Zabuza slung his sword behind his back and began to flash through hand signs. Now that Kakashi got a good look at him, he could see that Naruto's attack had managed to impart a decent amount of damage. Zabuza's torso was naked and singed heavily. Despite everything, Kakashi was impressed. First Tenzo and now Zabuza. His student was good at surprising opponents stronger than him. The second altercation went exactly as he expected though. Naruto burst onto the water, feinted with his right, spun and slashed at Zabuza with his left. A perfectly executed combo, but not something that was going to land a hit on one of the 7 swordsmen of the mist. Zabuza dodged with an easy sway and slammed his hands into the ram's seal. The very sea surged and captured Naruto instantly in a sphere of water. Zabuza had an arm immersed in the sphere, feeding it chakra and keeping it stable. A water clone rose out of the water an instant later and took over responsibility over the prison. As much as Naruto struggled, he wasn't able to escape. Slowly, the real Zabuza came forward. He called, "Your brat doesn't have long left. Give the bridge. Build her to me, and I'll ease his transition. I'm sure you know that drowning is one of the worst ways to go." He smirked gruesomely. A voice behind him chirped, "Wow, I never thought you would fall for that again. Even though I'm crazy, I'm not foolish enough to attack you directly like that. It's not really my style. Another Naruto was standing just to the right and behind. Kakashi said, please tell me that's the real you, in a dejected tone. Sensei, hurry up. I had higher expectations of you. In addition, I believe you ought to concentrate on him at this moment. When the third clone appeared, Zabuza growled in frustration, and the clone in the water prison slowly sank into the ocean, where the water rippled heavily a few seconds later as the clone exploded without causing any harm. Kid, you're so annoying. You would have attacked me directly if you had balls. Thanks, but no sensei showed me your bingo book entry. This is how I enjoy fighting you. Actually, I'll hand things off to sensei now. You have him all to yourself, Kakashi, sensei. Kakashi let out a sigh and turned to face his adversary, whom Naruto had effectively irritated. Zabuza stiffened as he called out, no more joking about, and raised his Hite.A to reveal his Sharingan. Naruto, return. Remain in formation and keep Tazuna safe. Things are going to get ugly. The clone jumped back and joined his two teammates after nodding. Guys, don't worry. I never fail my team. Immediately after he finished speaking, they both acted. Kakashi exploded onto the ocean, mimicking Zabuza's seals as he made them, and Zabuza leapt back, creating seals to set up his next move. Suiten. Jutsu no Suiria, Dan, they both shouted simultaneously. The two techniques collided at the exact midpoint with a tremendous impact and neutralized each other out as two enormous water dragons emerged from the ocean and charged at each other, their fangs bared. Zabuza growled and launched into yet another technique, and Kakashi followed suit, focusing his chakra on his left eye and preparing to cast his genjutsu. However, a huge volley of shuriken aimed directly at Zabuza, and behind each projectile, a thin strip of paper flared. Realizing his danger, Zabuza dropped his technique and dove under the water to avoid the attack, and the shuriken plunged into the water, with each blade exploding heavily upon impact, causing the once calm ocean to tremble. Kakashi, who had wished to keep Zabuza above water at all costs, stood motionless as the smoke and water gradually dissipated, his senses at full alert. He waited a full minute before slowly unwinding, and as far as he could tell, Zabuza was no longer there. Tazuna rapped loudly on the little cottage's door and said, "Open up. It's me," he called. After the fight, Reason had told them to get to their destination as quickly as possible, and they had done so. Tazuna had said that the journey would take an hour, but they had arrived in roughly 20 minutes. Civilians could move quickly when necessary. An attractive woman in her 30s opened the door. "Papa," she exclaimed, "thank heavens, we were becoming anxious." "It's all right. Tsunami, I'm all right, and my grandson is there. I was protected by these shinobi." He ushered the Konoha.nin into his tiny house and said, "Come in." As they assessed the house they were in, the team unburdened themselves and shuffled in slowly. "I am Kakashi," he said, nodding at Tazuna's daughter, who gave him a small curtsy in return. "I appreciate you looking after my father," she said. "I am aware that he can occasionally be a pain." "A tsunami," scolded their customer. "Would you mind allowing us a few minutes, Tazuna-san?" Kakashi ignored their family jokes and said, "I need to talk to my team." Their client nodded in agreement and walked away, gesturing to his daughter. With a sigh, Kakashi turned to face his team and looked at the blonde, asking, "What was that?" "What was it?" The innocent response was, "Naruto, I'm not in the mood for jokes. You disobeyed my orders outright. You advised us to avoid Zabuza." "I did." Kakashi's eyebrow went up. "What? I made use of bunshins. Are you a fool?" Sasuke just grinned, and Naruto glared back. "I had told you to avoid fighting, Naruto. Do you have any idea what you were doing? You had the potential to kill us both." "Oh, hurry up. The teamwork there was fantastic. If you had battled him by yourself, things might not have gone as smoothly. The point is not that. You must learn to obey commands. In particular, when you're still a genin. He was underestimating you, which is the only reason your initial attack nicked him. Additionally, you were very fortunate to have been able to surprise him twice. The next time, they won't work on him." Kakashi sighed and rubbed his face as Naruto gave him a mute glare. "You must always follow the battle plan," he said. "If we get into a fight, I don't want to waste time protecting you. The first time, I nearly jumped in. Your explosion probably would have killed me too if I had. Our goal was to keep the bridge builder safe. I didn't think you were weak when I told you to stay back. I trusted you to keep the bridge builder safe, so I told you to stay back." Of all the things Kakashi could have said, Naruto was shocked. He certainly hadn't anticipated that. "I apologize, sensei. Never again," he whispered. When did you intend to share your intricate setup with your bunchins with your teammates? Sensei, what do you mean? Sakura inquired. It was a clone that accompanied us on the entire trip. The real one kept a safe distance behind us. What? Sakura gasped. All right, hurry up. That one was good. You guys didn't even suspect the switch. Furthermore, we shouldn't have to. That's my main argument here. I apologize, but I had to. It would only be effective once. This time, you guys won't fall for it. Is everything a joke to you, Naruto? Kakashi sighed. No, the purpose of this test was to determine whether my clones were intelligent enough to survive in the presence of those who happen to know me personally. I see, Kakashi said slowly. Next time, I would prefer it if you didn't conduct your experiments in between a mission. I guess I could do that, Naruto sheepishly said. All right. All right. You three, pay attention. We should not become complacent just because we were able to repel Zabuza once. As you may have observed, he is a very dangerous shinobi. Fortunately for us, he was caught off guard by Naruto and had to tactically withdraw. He will undoubtedly target us once more. And he will undoubtedly bring backup this time. We have a lot of work ahead of us, so it's time for training, he grinned. Naruto gave a little whoop and grinned with satisfaction. Naruto, not for you. You must protect Tazuna. I will be training Sakura and Sasuke. With a sigh, Naruto took a seat. All right. As lookouts, send a couple of your cage bunchins. Also, keep the bridge safe. Get Tazuna's directions. Then hurry up, you two. Time to start working. And just one final item. You used tags, but where did you get them? Those tags weren't your typical ones. Naruto retorted, no, they weren't. Those were the ones I made myself. You mean you made yourself? That I created them on my own? Where the fuck had the boy picked up Fuinjutsu? Nobody had mentioned that to him. Kakashi looked at his student as he filed away, not wanting to be traveling with a kid who carried around specially made explosive tags. Searching for a suitable location to start their training, Kakashi took Sakura and Sasuke into the forest next to Tazuna's house and quickly located a clearing that would be ideal for their needs. Climbing trees is the aim of this training, and I'm not talking about climbing in the conventional sense. Observe. With his feet glued to the bark, Kakashi approached a tree and ascended it, followed by cries of soft amazement from Sakura and Sasuke, until he was standing upside down on the first branch. This is a very simple exercise for chakra control. You must grasp onto the wood while releasing the chakra from your feet. You risk falling if you use too little, and the wood will break if you use too much. Do you recall Naruto walking on water? The next phase of this training is that. I'll begin teaching you some jutsus once you have sufficient chakra control to accomplish that. After jumping off, he flipped in midair and hit the ground. How about giving it a try? You should take running starts, in my opinion. To record your progress, use kanais. When you are able to reach the top, return to the house. Your techniques will improve as a result. You'll be able to mold more quickly and incorporate more chakra. Practice will also aid in the expansion of your reserves. Before they could question him, Kakashi shunshined away, slapping his hand on the ground and cutting his thumb with a kunai before another of his summons materialized with a puff of smoke. Hi, Biscuit. Watch out for these two. If the enemy shows up, get them out of here. Jumping off, Kakashi began to run back to Tazuna's house. Sakura, who was panting heavily and drenched in sweat, gave a soft whoop of delight as she climbed the tree's highest branch. She had spent the better part of 4 hours doing this, and she was proud of herself, especially considering that Sasuke-kun had only climbed 10 feet. At last, she had something she was good at, but what climbing trees was going to do for her in a real fight didn't. Sakura hopped lightly from branch to branch, descending slowly and steadily, not trusting her own limbs in her fatigue, so she braced herself, jumped off from the lowest branch, and rolled to a safe landing. However, Sasuke-kun was ignoring her and was working diligently. His run up made sure he always managed a respectable height, but his progress beyond that was painfully slow. She contemplated whether or not to offer him assistance, but she hesitated for a moment before making up her mind. He appeared too preoccupied to bother at this moment. She returned slowly to Tazuna's place, where Naruto and Kakashi Sensei were waiting for her, waving a small goodbye that was entirely ignored. It was almost unthinkable to her that Naruto had managed to put up such a fight, and the thought of Naruto brought back memories of the fight with Zabuza. The man's killer intent had been nothing short of monstrous, and she was aware that the distance between her and her teammate was even greater than she had previously thought. He had it all: speed, taijutsu, deception, ninjutsu, and mental clarity. But more than all of that, he just confused her. How wrong she had been to assume that he was just another lazy idiot like Shikamaru, and that the Naruto traveling with them had been a clone. Had the person she had spoken to also been a clone? How could a simple construct of chakra possess that level of intelligence? She would have to ask him when she returned. Why hadn't he demonstrated all these skills back in the academy? Silently, Sasuke observed his female teammate leave after completing the task at hand successfully. His anger burst like a bubble, and he was left alone as Sakura and Naruto both showed up. He was a vengeful man, and he was beaten by a complete weakling. If things continued this way, Itachi would die of old age before he could get close to him. He cursed and ran again at the infernal tree he was practicing on, but this time he made no progress and the wood collapsed beneath his feet, sending him flying quite unceremoniously. He was so frustrated that he didn't bother to right himself in midair, landing heavily on his back with all the breath knocked out of him. He stared up the foliage, wondering what he was doing wrong. The Dobi didn't even have a clan teaching him on a daily basis, so why was Naruto miles ahead of him? What had he done? Why was he millennia behind Itachi? What did his brother have that he didn't? Most importantly, why had Zabuza's aura made him immobile while Naruto had the strength to attack the Junin without a shred of fear? He knew one thing. With Kakashi in charge, it didn't look like he was going to close the distance anytime soon. Zabuza refrained from picking at his chest wounds. Even though Haku did a respectable job of bandaging him, his torso was covered in severe burns that made every movement extremely painful. Scratching would only make infections more likely. Zabuza slowly raised himself from the makeshift bed he was lying on and stretched his neck. The way the fight ended was not what he had anticipated. The game changer had been the blonde brat. He had been unable to fully assess Kakashi's abilities because of Blondie. It had certainly not pleased him to have his own methods turned against him. And he was concerned about that. Something more had to exist. Kakashi would have gained his current reputation by merely tossing back the enemy's jutsus. Had it not been for the blonde brat's precise timing of the attack. He had hoped to gauge Kakashi's Raiden prowess. According to Kakashi's entry in the bingo book, the copy ninja's Raiden techniques were his most dangerous assets. Second, of course, to the Sharingan, but that was concerning to him. He intended to let the inherent vulnerability of his Suiden techniques to Raiden chakra work against him. Neutralizing the blonde brat was crucial for that. He had given Kakashi the advantage he required by grossly underestimating the blonde brat. Although the child had the appearance of a raw genin, his fighting style made it obvious that he wasn't. He had underestimated how powerful the first clone explosion had been. He would not have been hurt by regular explosive tags. Furthermore, the shuriken cage bunshin he had employed was not a straightforward method. But all in all, the brat was unquestionably below Junin level, and as long as that remained the case, they were in control. Zabuza's face gradually broke into a snarky grin. It had been a while since he had anticipated a kill. He called out, "Haku," as he left the structure that served as his makeshift residence. On the lowest limb of a nearby tree, his proto-copyright Ga copyright was standing guard. He got up and leapt down to join his master as soon as he heard the summons. "Yes, Zabuza. Sama. You are going to go for Kakashi first. Trap him in your ice mirrors while I finish off the brat. Then we'll kill Kakashi together. Are you sure that my ice mirrors will be capable enough to hold in a shinobi of the caliber of Hitaki Kakashi?" Zabuza smiled lethal as he said, "It should be able to hold him long enough for me to finish off the blonde kid. That kid's speed is quite good. This time we have to make sure to capture them in my mist before attacking. Once they're caught, the kid's speed, his irritating clones and Kakashi's Sharingan will be useless. Let's hope so. They might have some other tricks hidden away. Tricks or not, I am going to kill both of them with this sword o' mine." The morning after, Naruto observed as Sakura learned how to walk on water from Kakashi while perched on Tazuna's bridge. A surefire indication of exceptionally strong chakra control was the fact that she had perfected the tree climbing exercise in precisely one session. Naruto let out a sigh. Why hadn't he been gifted like that from birth? It would have greatly simplified his life. The fact that Sasuke didn't appear to be any more skilled than him was his only solace. As the day drew to a close, time moved rather slowly. Sakura received occasional guidance from Kakashi as he leaned against a tree and took out his porn. Under the midday sun, the laborers grunted and yelled as they worked. It was entertaining to watch Sakura repeatedly shriek as she fell into the water, but boredom quickly set in. "Sensei, mind if I check out the town? I'll leave my clones as back up." Kakashi did not look up from his book, but instead raised a languid arm of acknowledgement. From his position on Tazuna's house's roof, Naruto leapt off and began to make his way into the town. The night before, Tazuna had given him instructions. He could see that the town was not far away. Before reaching the capital of the Land of Waves, the road from the bridge went through a few acres of agricultural land. That's what he was told, anyway. However, the farms weren't actually farms. Nearly all of them were weed, infested and totally deserted. There weren't many livestock to their names, and the few that were still struggling were in terrible condition. Overall, the condition of the farms was not encouraging for the nation's future. The state of the town itself was no better. In roughly 5 minutes, he was able to complete the distance. The majority of the buildings were boarded up or in danger of collapsing, and the streets were filthy. When the bad times came, the majority of the population appeared to have just left. Those who had remained were skeletal and near death. Little children in rags were begging for food on the streets. It wasn't like there was much to share. It appeared that the adults were not much better off either. They ignored the scenes of desperation around them as they went about their daily lives, smelling of hunger and despair and wearing ragged clothes. Naruto quickly discovered who was in command. As far as he could tell, there was only one person who could afford the mercenaries and thugs of all kinds that were swarming the city. There was no mention of a police force. Gato had essentially taken over the town, and it didn't appear that he cared all that much about what his thugs were doing. The populace was obviously under their control and feared punishment for defying their oppressors. The town was dying, and the majority of its residents would not have much time left to live if nothing was done. That evening Tsunami placed the food she had prepared on the table while Kakashi and his group sat at Tazuna's dinner table. Tazuna had successfully caught fish from the sea for their supper. Obviously, illegally. For a long time, Gato had mandated that all fishermen sell their catch to him and then repurchase it at his prices. Tazuna snarled, "Where's Naruto? There are so many of his clones running about, I've lost track." Sakura offered. He said he was going to visit the town. Tazuna.san. "Well, 5 minutes and no longer. My grandson is a growing boy and he needs to eat." With a nod, Kakashi waited for his misbehaving pupil by leaning back against the wall. In contrast, his other pupils appeared to have improved. Sakura had also been able to learn how to walk on water. He contemplated instructing her on how to defeat genjutsus. Given her degree of control, she might be a skilled genjutsu practitioner or medic. Nin. He turned to face his other pupil. He asked Sasuke, "How high can you go now?" even though Biscuit had already given him that information. He paused and appeared to be having some difficulty for a few seconds before saying, "I'm almost at the first branch." He whispered, "How did Sakura manage it so easily?" The child had obviously found that to be a very challenging task. Kakashi hoped his conversation from the other day was finally having an impact and that it wasn't an isolated incident. "Sakura has an exponentially smaller chakra reserve than you. That's why she can control it so well. The lesser there is, the easier it is to control. For combat specialists like you and me, control comes with practice." Sasuke gave a contemplative nod. "Where's Naruto?" complained Sakura. Just like clockwork, Naruto entered. The fact that no one confronted him about his tardiness was evidence of his character. But for once, his face did not have a sheepish smile. Naruto appeared serious for once. "Hey old man. I just visited your town. How long have things been this bad?" Tazuna let out a sigh. "Like I told you before, all the problems of this country are caused by Gato. He initially came here to set up his shipping industry. The Land of the Waves is the perfect position to set up a trading industry like his. The daimyo invited him and even helped him without suspecting a thing. Gato soon bribed all the members of the court and most of the officials. He holds all the power now. You can say the daimyo is basically a figurehead. He used his power to pass a slew of new taxes which he collected by brute force with the army of mercenaries working for him. Soon, the entire country was in his grasp and he shut down all the trade routes. Now the only food we have are the things we manage to grow here, and there isn't much of that. That is why the bridge is our only hope. The daimyo managed to order its construction and gave us the funds when he realized what Gato was up to. It was after this act of defiance that Gato completely subjugated him. Nobody's seen the daimyo for a while now." The child was upset. Kakashi could see that clearly. "Naruto, I know what you are thinking, but it can't be done. Our mission is to protect Tazuna. Not save Wave," Kakashi whispered quietly. "So what? We let this country rot even when we can help. We are not gods, Naruto." In response, Naruto frowned. At midnight, when he eventually succeeded in climbing the tree, Sasuke experienced a surge of victory. Sweat, soaked and exhausted, he sat on the tip and gazed out over the forest. When Kakashi appeared on the branch beneath him, he began to stumble and nearly fell off. Why did the man have to do that every time? Would he never be able to move around like a regular person? Hello. Sasuke-kun. Kakashi waved and grinned. Looks like you're done here. Come on. Let's go. I think it's time I taught you the genjutsu I promised you. Up for it? Sasuke stood up and nodded enthusiastically. Okay. I have conditions though. You can never use anything I teach you on your own comrades. Understood? Slowly, Sasuke nodded. Good. Now activate your Sharingan and let's begin. The following day, Kurama-san. You remember Zabuza's chakra signature? I do, but I'm not going to find him for you if you plan to charge in like a fool. I want to find Gato. My only lead to him is Zabuza. You'll get yourself killed if you just walk into his base without a plan. Why don't you try find some other minions of Gato's? Zabuza is way too dangerous. Plus I don't think you would be able to make him talk even if you somehow manage to defeat him. You're right. I'll head into town. I'm bound to run into a few of his goons sooner or later. Takeshi's head slammed into the wall. He pondered what he had done to deserve this as stars danced around him and exploded into his vision. Don't do that. He had assisted an insane megalomaniac in seizing control of his nation. Now a fist struck his abdomen. Globs of blood spat out of his mouth as he doubled over. He looked up at his tormentor and wiped his mouth with his hand. A little child, blonde, in a Hite.8. Thus, even younger ninjas possessed this level of strength. It was a mind-blowing thought. A hand grabbed his hair and pulled his face up. His gaze was fixed on blue eyes. Blue eyes that are really irate. The ninja snarled, "Tell me where Gato is." "Fuck you. What's the point? You'll kill me after I tell you. And if I tell you, Gato will kill me." The ninja's face broke into a savage smile. The man appeared considerably more menacing. "That's where you're wrong. 1. If I kill you, I can make it infinitely more painful for you than Gato ever could. And 2. If I let you go, Gato won't be able to do anything to you. You know why? Because I would have already killed him." The ninja's pupils changed into vertical slits and his eyes became red. Takeshi had experienced numerous life or death battles, but he had never felt such a sense of murderous intent. There were 1,000 ways he could imagine the ninja killing him. He was certain that he would never experience such fear again. He released the tension that had been building in his groin. Gato is in the west end of the forest. He has a hideout of sorts there with a lot of guards. That's where he runs the daimyo from. "Please let me go," he said. "Are there any ninja amongst these guards you speak of?" He groveled without turning to face his tormentor. "No, none that I know of. Please let me go. I'm sorry for everything," he said. Takeshi experienced a sense of flight. With a single hand, the ninja had tossed him away. He bumped his back against the wall of the alley. Having said, "I do not want to find you causing any trouble here again," the ninja simply vanished. It was as though a great burden had been removed from Takeshi's heart. He would never again tamper with a ninja. Zabuza first, then this child. All of them were monsters. He found that he had soiled himself when he looked down. Then it was a jump in the river for him. Then he would cross and be gone from wave forever. It was too risky for him here. Haku. Yes, Zabuza. Sama. Come on. It's time to move. We can't give them too much of a reprieve. The burns have receded. My movements are no longer hampered. Yes. Let's go. After much searching, Naruto had finally found Gato's hiding place. The fortress, a massive 3-story structure, stood squarely in the middle of the clearing. The actual clearing was too big to be organic. There was enough space between the building and the forest to keep anyone from entering covertly. Of course, that only applied to civilians. Naruto was well within his Shunshin range at that distance. Guards were stationed on the roof and at the entrance. Naruto concluded that none of them were shinobi based on their movements. "You sure you can take that place down alone?" "Yeah, they won't even know I'm there." "How are you going to do this? Sneak in or take out all these guys first?" "I don't want all of these guys raising the alarm if I make a mistake, so we take out all these guys first." "Let's do it, then." "Change of plans, Haku," Zabuza responded. "The blonde kid isn't here. I'll take on Kakashi. You handle the other two. Kill of the bridge builder if you can." "Hi, Zabuza." "Sama. Move out." Kakashi read his book while leaning against the bridge's edge. He caught a glimpse of Sakura and Sasuke standing watch close to Tazuna. There was no sign of Naruto. He hoped he wasn't making a mistake. When they had woken up this morning, the brat was gone. Sakura vowed she hadn't seen him go while she was on watch. This was where he was inclined to believe. That child was very cunning. A mist began to roll in, and Kakashi's senses went into overdrive. A mist that was obviously artificial. Even though it was midday, the air was already deficient in moisture. All the workers, run away now. Tazuna, stay close to me and my team. This mist isn't natural, he yelled. As some kind of stampede rushed past Kakashi, he unfurled his Sharingan. He ignored it, trying to figure out where Zabuza was. Not good. In a mist this dense, his nose was not good enough. He felt an assault approaching from behind just as he was ready to call forth Pakun. He spun around and pulled out a kunai in his right hand. He watched in slow motion as Zabuza attempted to use his cleaver to cut him in half. He slashed at Zabuza's throat with one hand while slapping the blade down with his left. Zabuza swayed back and yanked his sword from Kakashi's grasp with a display of strength. The edge of the sword cut through Kakashi's palm, sending a spray of blood flying from the hand. Zabuza pulled it loose and pushed it back in the same direction. Kakashi leapt to the side and separated them. Before the mist blocked his view, he caught a glimpse of Sasuke fighting a child his size out of the corner of his eye. He wished Sasuke well. He wasn't really free to go assist him at this time. As he melted back into the mist, he abruptly returned his focus to Zabuza. With one hand, he was unable to repel him. Then, only one option. As soon as the mist began to roll in, Sasuke had triggered his Sharingan. He had been able to see the hail of Senbon approaching Tazuna because of this. He had used a Kaden to block them. Sakura, stay close to Tazuna. I'll handle this. He hurried forward in the direction that attack had come from, pushing Chakra to his feet. A trio of Senbon approached him. He sidestepped around them. The enemy launched an aerial attack at that precise moment. He wouldn't have seen it coming if it weren't for his eyes. He tossed a kunai after rolling sideways. The enemy threw it back after catching it in midair. Sasuke dodged once more, giving him a clear view of his opponent for the first time. Despite wearing an Anbu mask, his opponent appeared to be about his size. Sasuke inferred from his physique and muscularity that his adversary was not significantly older than he was. He had no intention of losing to a person his age ever again. There was more than enough Naruto. The man raised his hand and gestured with it. Sensatsu Suisha. The enemy hurled a shower of thin water needles at him from every side using the ocean's water. He leapt aside and spun to face his opponent after using another burst of chakra to get to his feet, but his opponent had vanished into the mist. A ghostly voice called out from everywhere, "You have the Sharingan. I will have to bring out my strongest attack to defeat you. Makaya Hayasha." A dome of ice mirrors grew up around him, and Sasuke watched in disbelief. His adversary was reflected in every mirror. Without hesitation, he raised his hands and used another Kaden, but it had no effect. His assault hardly made a dent. Every reflection raised his hand and hurled a Senbon in his direction. They were too numerous to avoid. He moved just enough to make sure none of his vitals would be struck while he was thinking on his feet. Sasuke raised his arms to shield his eyes and prepared for the onslaught. He only got a single blow to his left arm instead. He cursed his panic and narrowed his eyes to identify the true enemy. He believed this method to be much more lethal than it actually was. It should be easy to find the enemy with his eyes. He was hit by another barrage of reflections, but he didn't bother avoiding this time. A Senbon lodged itself in his neck muscles. He spun around, identifying the thrower with a victorious expression. He had his objective. His adversary fled from the mirror he was in and sped at another after realizing he had been caught off guard. Every one of his reflections imitated him. A ruse that would have confused nearly every shinobi. Unless the Sharingan was in the hands of a shinobi. He followed the original thrower closely with his eyes. He was hoping that the man would look directly at him, and he did. With a triumphant grimace, he met his adversary's gaze. Naruto stood at the edge of the clearing and counted the number of grunts on the roof. They were playing cards while seated at a table. A number of crossbows were lying unused to the side, as he could see. Snipers. He silently shunshined to the center of the table, making a single hand sign. The guards startled and started to move. 5 shuriken, 2 in Naruto's left hand and 3 in his right, were drawn out as his hands darted into his pouches. In one smooth motion, he spun and threw his weapons at the guards. His goal is to be truthful. 5 shuriken lodged themselves in 5 skulls, resulting in 5 blood spurts. They were killed before they could even scream, and they fell silently, their blood streaming freely. Naruto examined his clothing while looking down. They had red splatters on them. The sight made his stomach turn violently, and he started to gag. Suppressing the impulse, he put a hand to his mouth. Work remained to be done. He approached the edge and peered down. At the door, he counted 4. Naruto pulled out 2 of his katanas. He scaled the precipice and leapt to the ground. The first 2's dead bodies softened his fall. Lunging at the other 2, he channeled Fudan chakra into his blades. Before they could move, they were dead. A shinobi's speed was unimaginable for regular mercenaries. Naruto was also a lot faster than most. He was unable to control his impulse this time. He keeled over and spat out a retch on the grass, dropping his blades. "You okay, Naruto?" Naruto's stomach was still tight, but he had nothing left to throw up. He got to his feet shakily, wiping his mouth with his sleeve. He tried to soothe his roiling stomach by taking deep breaths. "I'm fine. You have killed before. Why react so now?" "I've killed animals before. Never humans. Animals and humans. What is the difference? If you do not feel remorse for slaying one, then you should not feel anything for slaying the other as well. That's how it should be. My mind and my heart tell me that what I'm doing is right and that these people deserved it, but my stomach thinks differently. You humans are soft. That may be so, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. I have long known that in this world it is simply, kill or be killed. There is no point feeling remorse for your enemies. If they stand against you, then they must perish. Yeah. I guess I better get used to it. I'm a shinobi. I'm going to be killing people for a living. Then what gives you the right to judge them and execute them? How many more? 3 more. All 3 in the same location. Must be Gato and his personal bodyguards. Only 2 guards? Yes, makes it easier for me." With a heavy thud, his enemy's body fell to the ground like a puppet whose strings had been cut. As the chakra source that sustained them dwindled, his ice creations gradually started to melt away. Sasuke rubbed his head in agony and grimaced. Chakra had been used up far more than he had anticipated. He was going to have to adjust to the drop rather quickly. He snarled and yanked the senbon from around his neck, tossing it behind him. He took out a coil of ninja wire and started securing his fallen foe. The duration of his genjutsu was unknown to him. With his right hand, Kakashi extracted a scroll, and with his left, he smeared it with blood. Despite the pain, he pressed his hands together and used the scroll between his thumbs to make 4 hand signs. Then he slammed his hands and the scroll to the floor. Kachiyose. Doden. Suiga no Jutsu. Around Kakashi, the ground began to crack and vibrate violently. Zabuza halted the jutsu he was about to execute a few feet away and raised his defenses. He had never heard the kind of sounds he was hearing before. He just couldn't figure out what was going to happen. Before he could react, 8 dogs leapt out of the ground around him and snagged him with their razor sharp teeth. He growled at the agony and made an unsuccessful attempt to fend them off. They held on tighter the harder he struggled. His mist started to clear and his focus started to falter. His opponent said, "It's over, Zabuza. Give up now while you can, or else get ready to die." "It isn't over until I'm dead, Kakashi." "Your call," Kakashi said, raising his right hand to summon a rakery. "Say goodbye to the world." "Stop," I heard someone say. A while back silently, Naruto jogged down the hallway. When he arrived at the door he knocked. "Come in," said a voice. He smiled and kicked the door open. The people in the room let out a number of surprised cries. They were anticipating a messenger. Not a little blonde child covered in blood and wearing a Hite.8. After drawing their weapons, the 2 samurai charged Naruto. He was in front of them one moment, and then behind them the next. Not even the flash of his blades was visible to the samurai. With his 2 bloodied blades in hand, Naruto strolled over to Gato. The man who had destroyed Wave spluttered and attempted to flee as Naruto watched. He pinned him against the wall after catching him with a hand. His height made this a little challenging to accomplish, but he found a way. "Hello," he said, grinning fiercely. Who are you?" "Me? I'm the guy who's here to kill you. No, please don't hurt me. I'll give you all the money you want." Naruto drew a kunai and said, "No thanks. I have all the money I want." Zabuza and Kakashi turned to face the source of the voice. Naruto was the one. A little black clad man was slung over his shoulder. He grunted, picked up the man, and flung him to the ground. He leapt down and turned the body over, revealing the face with his leg. Naruto toed Gato in disgust and said, "Zabuza, this fight is pointless. The dead can't pay you." Kakashi had to work very hard to keep his face in control. Without a doubt, he had anticipated the child would do something foolish. That was obvious. He was surprised that the child was able to remove Gato on his own. That's who he thought the body belonged to, anyway. Otherwise, this whole situation would be illogical. His doubts were allayed by a glance at Zabuza's face. Kakashi. We're done. This fight is pointless now. Haku and I will be off. Kakashi signaled his dogs to stop. He continued to use his rakery. Zabuza put his sword away. Relax, Kakashi. I'm a man of my word, plus I don't like fighting unnecessary fights. We both have been through enough fights to realize the value of life. Sasuke picked that time to show up with Sakura and Tazuna. When they realized what was happening, they began to display perplexed looks. What's going on? Zabuza gave Naruto a quick thumbs up. The kid took down Gato. Where's Haku? Passed out and tied him. Got him with a genjutsu, Sasuke replied, his face displaying a satisfied look. Zabuza left. Naruto asked, where are you going? Zabuza stopped and looked around. To look for more work. My rebellion is not going to start itself. Calling Kakashi, you're already too late. Zabuza looked at him and spun around. What do you mean? We have ended the civil war. A new Mizukage has emerged. Kiri sent an official message to Konoha some time ago. You're cheating on me. Why would I? Who is it? If you're lying to me, I'll kill you right there. Why would I? Lying to you will not benefit me in any way. After silently glaring at him for some time, Zabuza nodded. I understand. Kakashi, thank you. I owe you money. Are you aware of the identity of the new Mizukage? The Hokage didn't deem it fit to entrust me with that bit of information. Zabuza nodded, I see, and turned to walk away, leaving the Konoha team to watch him go in silence. What did you do, Naruto? Kakashi inquired. Naruto shrugged and said, I found him and I killed him. Tazuna simply gazed incredulously at the body of his nation's adversary. After 2 days after dinner, Naruto left Tazuna's house. The mission had been to keep Tazuna safe until the bridge was finished, and he had pointed out that Tazuna didn't need any more protection, but Kakashi didn't seem to understand, so they helped with the construction to move things along more quickly. Naruto, wait, Kakashi. Sensei called out to him. When he turned around, he saw him approaching him as he left the door. I would like to speak with you for a while. Let's go to another location. Kakashi led him to a clearing in the forest, and Naruto followed. How were you able to locate Gato? Until I came across one of his thugs, I wandered around the town, pushed it from him. Kakashi jerked. What about Gato? He had guards, right? Took them all out. Luckily it worked out for you, but don't expect to be so lucky next time. What are you saying? What if your team is attacked while you're away and everyone is killed because of your absence? What happens if you go alone and are killed? Have you given such things any thought? I told you not to try anything for a reason? I was forced to do it. Have you noticed the damage he was causing to this nation? That wasn't our mission, Kakashi bellowed. Shinobi Rule 72. Shinobi kill for the greater good. Shinobi Rule 7 states that they should only kill to complete a mission. Furthermore, Gato wasn't our goal. BU. No, you pay attention to me. The fact that we carry out orders is the only distinction between what we do and murder. Furthermore, you were not ordered to kill Gato by the Hokage. Your actions are equivalent to giving up on our mission. BU. Shinobi only kill when the Hokage orders an assassination, to defend themselves, or to protect their clients. Because he has earned the right, the Hokage is permitted to do so. However, your actions were incorrect. You have not merited the authority to condemn others or to put them to death. Looking at the ground, Naruto realized that he had made a big mistake and that it had been a while since he had felt like a little kid. Sensei, I apologize. Won't occur once more. Ensure that it doesn't. Since you believe that you were doing well, I'll overlook it this time. Which you were. However, shinobi are not good. We do as we are told. Earn it if you want to do anything you want. Give up being a shinobi or become the Hokage. Naruto was left in agony as Kakashi leapt away. After 2 weeks. I'm hungry, Sensei, Sakura complained. Calm down. A village is about 10 minutes away. We'll spend the night there. It takes half a day to get to Konoha. Our goal is to arrive there by tomorrow afternoon. After arriving in the village, Team Kakashi checked into the nearby inn. Since the village wasn't very large and his reconnaissance of the area led him to a small ramen stall on the outskirts, Naruto quietly left the inn, noting that there was no ramen there and that he still didn't feel comfortable around Kakashi. His body had not taken well to being denied his favorite food for so long, so when his bowl arrived, he lifted his chopsticks and dived right in. The first mouthful was in his mouth and down his throat in a matter of seconds, and as he reached for his second mouthful, his arm felt heavier than usual. His eyes started to slowly close as he tried to look at his misbehaving limb, but no matter how hard he tried, he was unable to force them open. His brain appeared to have fallen into a deep sleep. Fuck it. I just want to eat ramen. Before everything turned black, that was the last thing on his mind. Sakura knocked on her sensei's door after walking down the hallway. She was eager to get home in the morning. Her thoughts and nerves had been strained by the missions. Wake up, sensei. It's time to go. When a hand caught her shoulder from behind, she let out a cry and leapt a mile. She turned around to see her sensei standing there, fully clothed, and giving her a sheepish smile. If nothing else, she thought he was grinning. It was impossible to tell with that mask on. He said, "Sorry, didn't intend to scare you," as he easily sidestepped the blow she threw at him. "Come on. Let's wake up those two and get going." A displeased Sakura was led by Kakashi to the rooms of her teammates. After a few knocks, a fully clothed Sasuke opened the door. He questioned, "Time to go?" "Yeah. Wake up Naruto too. He'll sleep on for forever if we let him." "He never came back last night." Kakashi was a little uncomfortable. "And you didn't bother telling me this till now?" Sasuke gave a shrug. "I just woke up. He would be informed if Naruto stayed out all night. Particularly after the reprimand he had given him in Wave. There were other factors at work here. You two stay here and wait for me, I'll be back." Entering the room, Kakashi headed for Naruto's pack. He opened it and ripped a piece of fabric from a shirt's corner. His student had left everything in the room, as far as he could tell. Even his weapons. It was unthinkable that Naruto would go on a significant adventure without his swords. Getting up, Kakashi stepped out onto the balcony. He jumped silently onto the inn's shingled roof. He sliced his thumb with a kunai. He called forth Pakun by slapping his bloody hand to the ground. "You remember Naruto, don't you?" he said, extending the piece of fabric up. "He didn't come back last night. Find him." Pakun sniffed the air a few times, inhaled the scent of the cloth, and then leapt across the rooftops. He took Kakashi to an old ramen stand on the other side of town. When he got there, he paused and began sniffing the air vigorously. "What's wrong?" His voice trailed off, and he resumed sniffing the air. "The kid definitely came here last night. The age of the trail proves that. After that," he said. "Pakun. His trail just disappears here. I can't smell it any direction. Not just his scent. That whole stall has been stripped clean of scents somehow. Must be some jutsu. I can only smell things that have occurred since the time whatever happened here happened." "Fuck," Kakashi swore. Although he didn't usually use foul language, the circumstances obviously called for it. "He's been taken by someone with intel on Konoha. They knew that he was with me and they knew that I tracked by scent. We have a spy. This is bad. Why don't you question the owner? No use. This thing reeks of professionalism. There is no way they left any loose ends like that." He drew a kunai once more and sliced his thumb again. He called forth all of his ninkin. He took out the piece of cloth and held it out to them, saying, "All of you spread out and search for Naruto's scent. It's got to appear at some point. A jutsu like this can't be maintained for too long. As soon as you find anything, use a Kuchios no jutsu and summon me there, got it? Pakun, you head back to the hotel. Take Sakura and Sasuke back to Konoha and tell the Hokage about this. Ask him for an Anbu tracking team. Wait. Ask for an Anbu combat squad as well. We have no idea how strong the kidnappers are. Bring them back here to me here. Don't summon me unless you absolutely need to. Go, go, go." Before Pakun barged in, Sarutobi had been enjoying his day to a moderate degree. After that, everything had gotten worse. When he got the report from Kakashi's summons, he angrily slapped both hands down on his table. He rarely became angry, but now he did. His adopted grandson had been abducted. "I don't care what they're doing," he yelled at his secretary. "Get Tenzo's and Santa's teams right now." He turned his chair and turned to face the large, white-haired man who was leaning against the wall as soon as she was gone. "You have good timing. You're going as well. I want him back at all costs. I will not let my adoptive grandson die." "I would have gone even if you had told me not to," the man grinned grimly in response. "He's my heir as well, you know. I'm leaving it to you. While you're gone, I'll try and find the leak." At dusk, when Pakun and the two Anbu teams landed beside Kakashi's position just outside the village, his expression stayed neutral. The sun's last rays were just disappearing from view. He was completely unfazed by the fact that one of the Anbu was riding a large black dog. But when he saw who was going with them, his expression did change. As he jumped down, he exclaimed, "Jiraiya, Sama, what are you doing here?" The normally smiling face of the Sannin was grave. "I'm here to get my godson back. I already heard your Mutt's report. Anything new?" "No, my other Ninken haven't picked up anything yet." "You. The Hyuga. Check out the stall." A single hand sign was made by an Anbu wearing a bird mask as it moved forward. "Chakra signatures. Very faint. They have been wiped. Without the Byakugan, no sensor would have noticed it." "How many?" "2 performed the grab. They met up with 6 more at a spot around a kilometer from here." Another Anbu inquired, "How wide is your range? Can you see them?" "The grab occurred last night. More than 12 hours ago. There is no way they are anyway near enough for me to see them. But as far as I can see they're moving north. We should get moving." "Let's inspect the meeting point first. We might find something there," Jiraiya replied. 10 shinobi all leapt off at once. The Ninken of the Inuzuka gave a mournful bark after sniffing the air. "He still can't smell anything," his partner remarked. "Hyuga. You sure that this the exact spot the enemy were?" Jiraiya responded. The Anbu gave a nod. Taking out an empty scroll, Jiraiya sketched a complicated array on it. He set the scroll down on the floor and placed both of his hands on it. He directed a surge of chakra towards it. The entire clearing was covered by the array that seeped out of the scroll. "I have activated the use of chakra inside this zone. The jutsu which is wiping their sense and their chakra signatures should have been negated." The dog gave the air another sniff and began barking. The Inuzuka gave a nod. "He has their sense. Tell him to remember it. They'll disappear again when I release the seal. He better be able to pick it up again after we get past this jutsu's range. I haven't seen this particular technique in a long time. From what I recall, it's not particularly easy to pull off. Let's go. Try and keep up with me, you lot. I'm going to go as fast as I can. I know I can catch up to them by tomorrow morning, and I intend to do regardless of the fact that I may be the only one to make it," Jiraiya said as he headed off. As they drove off, the Inuzuka asked, "Jiraiya, Sama, you say you've come across this technique before? Where and in those hands?" "It was a long time ago. It matters not." The following morning, Naruto was on the move. Quick. When he gradually regained consciousness, that was the first and only thing I could make out. His head felt lightheaded, and moving so quickly was undoubtedly making matters worse. When he finally found the strength to open his eyes, he discovered that he had been blindfolded. He could feel the shackles on his hands and feet as the sensation gradually spread to the rest of his body. When he attempted to access his chakra, he discovered a barrier. He had the impression that something substantial and powerful had been pushed in the way of his chakra network. He was so accustomed to having his chakra that it was extremely frightening when it was gone. It was obvious that someone had grabbed him. He didn't even know why he had been grabbed. He wasn't particularly well known or anything. It's possible that Gado's benefactor was upset that Naruto had ended his rule in Wave. "You there, Kurama-san? You're finally awake. Good. I have been battling the poison in your blood for hours now. They keep injecting you with a new dose just as I'm about to finish. It seems they know about me." "Any idea who they are?" "No, but you better do something now before they inject you again. You said you could sense negative emotions. Why didn't you warn me?" "Because I wasn't in sensing mode. It's not something I do innately." "I see. My chakra has been blocked. Give me yours." "With pleasure." The prisoner on Hitoshi's shoulder stirred. A tinge of panic awoke inside him. It was too soon. It was anticipated that the medication would last for a few more hours. His heels dug in and he hefted his prisoner onto the ground in a flash. "He's waking up, Muda. Give him another dose of poison fast," he yelled. As Muda fumbled for the poison, he watched. One thing was certain. He had learned the hard way not to enrage a Jinchuriki after the last incident with Roshi. The child was going to be furious if he woke up. Muda drew the poison into the tube and inserted a syringe into a bottle. He knelt down and attempted, but was unsuccessful, to stab his prisoner. Something red was seeping from the body of his captive. When the needle came into contact, it broke apart. He saw the child raise his head and give him a red-eyed stare. "Then it's time to fight." All of them were Iwajunin. A single Jinchuriki might be theirs. One young, untrained Jinchuriki. When the Anbu team experienced a strong chakra flare that they hadn't experienced in 12 years, they all stopped together. Even non-sensors could sense the chakra's strength from a distance. Following the path Jiraiya, Kakashi, and Tenzo had left for them, they set out once more. Despite their skill, they were unable to match their speed. Their trailblazers were more than 5 hours ahead of them. As the ox, masked Anbu followed him, Jiraiya called out to them, "You're good, kid. What's your name again? I didn't expect anyone other than Kakashi to match my speed." They swept from tree to tree. "Tenzo," came the terse response. Jiraiya's voice trailed off uneasily. "Tenzo. Tenzo. Where have I heard that name before? Wait, aren't you the kid who Orochimaru?" Kakashi needed no more confirmation than the expression on his face. At that moment, a strong chakra declared itself to the world. They all three came to a halt and gazed straight ahead. Shaking his head, Jiraiya turned back to face Tenzo. "I'm glad to have you with me, kid. We might have need of your Mokuton. Come on. We have almost caught up. He's not too far away. I hope you two aren't too tired to fight." When they both shook their heads, Jiraiya leapt off and regained the lead. "Pop a couple of pills, if you have him. I don't want to be held back during the fight." Naruto slowly pulled himself off the ground as a barrage of various weapons flew at him. With a roar, Naruto poured his potent chakra into his throat and opened his mouth. His mouth emitted a strong shockwave that smashed out in all directions. In addition to easily repelling the projectiles, the strong attack knocked all of his opponents back. Naruto got to his feet, raised a hand, and examined the chakra cloak that encircled him. He looked up and started examining his opponents. They were all Junin and wore the Iwa insignia. He could deduce that much from their posture, musculature, and chakra levels. "Kurama-san, I'm up against 8 Junin. I don't think I have the liberty to hold back. Give me everything the seal lets you give me." Just as his adversaries were getting up and forming a battle formation, 3 tails began to slowly emerge from the red chakra cloak. To start the jutsu preparations, the leader raised his hands. He was never given the opportunity. Naruto raced at him in a red blur, punching him in the jaw. The enemy leapt backwards to try to avoid it. From Naruto's arm, a pure chakra arm spread outward and honed on the adversary. He had no chance of avoiding the blow because it came while he was in the air. To put it simply, the man flew backwards like a rag doll. Naruto extended the length of his tails and drew back the arm of chakra. And he started spinning, using his momentum. His tails created a half circle of red as he spun, a circle of destruction. The rest of his adversaries broke their formation entirely as they dispersed in all directions to avoid his tails. The Iwa Junin started to reorganize almost immediately, dividing into 2 groups of 3 and 4. While the others attacked Naruto, the 4-person group hung back and began making hand gestures. The 3 assailants slammed their palms to the ground and yelled, "Doden! Sando no Jutsu," simultaneously. Naruto found himself sandwiched between 2 rock formations that rose on either side of him. Naruto leapt and cleared the attack by pushing chakra to his feet. A sophisticated ceiling array appeared around the 4 Iwa Junin as he fell back toward the ground. The array quickly expanded and spread out in size. The luminous green array suddenly engulfed the ground directly beneath him. "What the hell is that? It is some kind of seal. Do not touch at any cost. It must be something made to contain my power." Naruto cried, "Kage Bunshin no Jutsu," and made a clone. Considering the turbulence of the potent chakra he was using, this task was very challenging. He couldn't have done it if he hadn't been familiar with the Kage Bunshin technique. He pushed off, landed away from the seal, and leapt onto his clone in midair. He sped off and cleared some space, reversing course to avoid the ever-expanding array. "This is bad. I really need to learn some long-range techniques. Although I don't like the notion of running away, it's the only thing to do right now. This team seems to specialize in anti-Biju techniques. Let's call it tactical retreat. Sounds much better than running away." Kurama laughed. "Tactical retreat, huh? I like the sound of that. Better get going then." "Which way? I thought that was obvious. Back the way you came. Better get the most of my chakra while you can. I don't think your body be handle it for too much longer." Naruto didn't require any more encouragement. He turned and was off in a moment. He obviously had the advantage he required thanks to the red chakra. He effortlessly withdrew from his assailants and concentrated on building a wide lead. His speed would drastically decrease once he lost control of the red chakra. He needed to make good on his escape immediately if he was going to live. By the time his first tail wore off, he had managed to last 20 minutes. The next failed after 5 more minutes. About 3 minutes later, as he was jumping, his cloak vanished. He was caught off guard by the abrupt loss of his motivation. Naruto screamed, "Fuck," after missing his landing spot. Actually, as he fell to the ground, he kept swearing. Recovering and forcing his tired limbs to pay attention to what his brain was saying took a few seconds. With a strong sense of impending disaster, he got to his feet shakily. There was no doubt that he would not survive. It would take his pursuers no more than 15 minutes to catch up to him. He most certainly wasn't going to make their lives easy. He grunted and took off once more. He quickly assessed his chakra reserves and decided that making bunchins as distractions would not be wise. Any additional chakra redistribution would only slow him down. Nevertheless, he was going to meet a sticky end soon if he did nothing. Leap. He made 2 clones with a hand sign. Naruto changed his direction and ran. Every leap nearly killed his legs upon landing, and every step was an effort. But he persisted. He might have a slim chance of getting away if his distractions were successful. They would still catch up to him, he knew. However, he would face 2 or 3 opponents because of his clones. Not the whole team. It was better than before, even though the odds were still against him. He clung tenaciously to that glimmer of hope. 10 minutes later, his first clone was destroyed. The second clone was short-lived. Naruto snarled, "Fuck," as his glimmering hope of survival crashed to earth. Kurama-san, can you give me some more of your chakra? Yes, but you better hold on till the fight. Using it now would simply be a waste. Naruto gave a somber nod. The reasoning of his partner made sense. He continued to labor. His partner soon broke his concentration. They're within my range. I can feel them now. Keep going as long as you can. How many? 3. Naruto gave a somber nod. The others would follow closely behind. The others would catch up during the battle when it came time to take these 3. That is, if he survived that long. Naruto. It's Kakashi. Right ahead. Hurry. He has Tenzo and someone really powerful with him. What? How? Just run, you fool. Naruto obeyed. Before him, a trio emerged from the foliage a few seconds later. The man in the Anbu outfit had to be Tenzo, and he recognized Kakashi right away. A man he had read about was leading them. Of the Sannin, Jiraiya. The teacher of his father. Kakashi exclaimed, "Naruto." As soon as he saw his pupil, Jiraiya abruptly stopped and gesticulated with his hand. Naruto yelled, "They're right behind me," as he closed the distance and landed in the middle of them. "Yo sensei," a panting Naruto said. "I would like to stop and chat, but we should really get moving. There are 7 of them after me." Tenzo interrupted, asking, "Who are they?" "Iwa Junin." "Iwa?" exclaimed Kakashi, startled. Wow, they must really hate sensei if they tried to pull off a stunt like this after so many years. "Can we talk later? We need to move," Tenzo stated. "There's no need for that now." "Why?" Kakashi uttered the simple words, "Jiraiya Sama is here," as the adversaries appeared. Jiraiya's face lit up with a broad smile at this statement. As he posed, he exclaimed, "That's right, kid. I am the one and only great toad sage of Mount Myoboku, Jiraiya of the Sannin." The Iwa team appeared as if on cue and came to a halt almost immediately. They had clearly recognized Jiraiya and were now keeping a close eye on him. Despite his advanced age, the Sannin's reputation remained strong. Jiraiya vanished out of thin air. Naruto let out a gasp. Even when he used his Shunshin, Jiraiya was far faster than Naruto. The first enemy was thrown back in a shower of blood when Jiraiya's fist struck his chest. As a sort of delay tactic, his teammates retreated and threw a flurry of kunai at Jiraiya. They obviously needed new plans. One just comes with strategies on the spot against a foe of Jiraiya's caliber. However, Jiraiya was not amenable to this. Before the throwers could even react, he grabbed 2 of the kunai out of the air and snapped them back at them. They buried their throats in the kunai. Jiraiya's hair changed, grew longer, and changed into a barrier of protection around him as he threw the kunai. The remaining blades harmlessly bounced off his shield. 2 of the Iwa Junin pulled out swords and closed in on him, taking matters into their own hands. Grabbing one by the throat with his right hand, Jiraiya extended his arm. To evade the other one's attack, he leaned back coolly and raised his left hand. He slammed it into the other adversary after a sphere of pure chakra formed on his palm. The technique ground into his chest like butter, and there was a nasty noise. The man fell to the forest floor and never came back up. He slung the other shinobi over his shoulder after punching him unconscious. He released both hands and brought them together to perform a series of hand gestures. Kaden. Enden. The forest in front of Jiraiya was completely destroyed when a huge fireball burst from his mouth. He threw the Iwa shinobi at Kakashi's feet and leapt back. He grinned and said, "There you go. Problem solved," while Naruto stared at him in awe. Naruto concluded that this man was really awesome. "Come on. Let's meet up with the others first. These guys might have back, upcoming." After 2 days, Muda lowered his head and prayed that he wouldn't receive a harsh punishment. He had failed a mission of S rank. One that had been given to him expressly. "I'm sorry, Tsuchikage Sama, but the boy escaped. We kept injecting him with the serum, but we underestimated his recovery time. He was able to break free." In front of him, the small elderly man leaned forward. "So he woke up. That was within the plan. Why didn't you capture him again?" he inquired. "When he woke up, he summoned his Biju's chakra and took us by surprise. He got me first. I am only alive because I just managed to harden my skin before he struck. I don't know what happened after that. When I woke up, they were all gone. There were no bodies at my location. A large part of the nearby forest was burned down. I assume it was a Kaiden technique. I was able to find some charred remains there, but I can't be sure of the numbers. It is possible that some of my squad may have been taken captive." The Tsuchikage rose to his feet. This wasn't good. Such an incident could lead to war in Konoha. It was intended that no one would learn of their involvement. "Erase all records of yourself and your team. If Konoha inquires, then I will inform them that you and your squad were a bunch of missing nins. Got it? In the worst case scenario, be prepared to be a peace offering. Now go," he said without looking at his shinobi. As one of his best Junin left his office, Onoki watched. Stretching his fingers, he began writing a response to the letter that Konoha would undoubtedly send him. The only bright spot was that the daimyo would support him instead of the scheming council following this incident. They had been entitled to this mission. His back started acting up again, and he sighed. Damn it, he was too old to be fighting in another war. When he awoke, the dark-eyed man searched for his companion. Instead of keeping watch, his partner was soundly asleep in the center of the clearing, using his cloak as a pillow. The man rose slowly and approached the center of the clearing. He arrived at his companion and glanced down. He saw gills and blue skin. He towed him gently. "Kisame, get up. We need to get moving now if we plan to enter the fire country anytime soon." After widening in surprise, Naruto's eyes softened and began to shimmer a little. He gave the elderly man a hug in return, raising his hands. This was the most intimate hug he had ever experienced. It was pleasant. The temperature was warm. Was this the experience of being a family? As Naruto left his building and headed home, Sarutobi watched him from his window. Until he was lost in the crowd, he continued to watch him. He pivoted and confronted the pair of men in his office. "Kakashi, how could you have let this happen in the first place? You were supposed to keep an eye on him, not let him get grabbed by." He was interrupted by a knock on the door. "Come in," called Sarutobi. A man with 2 long scars on his face, wearing a bandana, came in. "Good Ibiki. You came fast. Jiraiya has a prisoner for you. Get anything you can out of him, but do not kill him. Nothing permanent as well. He is an Iwa Junin, and who knows what might happen in the future. A healthy hostage might be useful." Jiraiya said, "Ibiki? Huh, you sure grew up, didn't you? Haven't seen you at all in my last couple of visits to the village." As he leaned against the wall as usual. A toad was perched on his right shoulder. "It is good to have you back, Jiraiya. Sama, the prisoner?" The toad landed on Ibiki's shoulder after leaping off Jiraiya's. "He's inside. You know what to do. Hi, I'll get to it then." After turning, Ibiki walked out of the office. Sarutobi's focus returned to Kakashi. "Well, I thought he was good enough to go alone for a ramen run. We were pretty close to Konoha after all. I wasn't expecting any trouble this close to home." Sarutobi let out a sigh. "I really don't know what to say to you. You know as well as I do how important the boy's safety is to the village. This is the second time, you know." "You're right," Kakashi said. "And like last time, I'm willing to take any punishment you feel inclined to mete out." "Damn you, boy," Sarutobi snarled. "How was the mission?" Kakashi was the next to sigh. "It's a long story. The client lied a boo." Jiraiya chimed in, "That can wait for later. We have more important things to worry about. I think Minato's seal is weakening. We saw him use the Kyuubi's chakra. A lot of it. The Anbu said they felt it 30 kilometers away." Sarutobi broke the silence that had held the office for a few seconds. "Did you take a look at the seal? No, the priority was to get the kid back as soon as possible." "I didn't have the time to do it. I'll do it now. I might have to use the key to tighten it up a bit. Secondly, the reason I came back to the village in the first place. I never got a chance to talk to you about it since this thing popped up. I have been following Orochimaru's movements for a while now. After he ran away, he seems to have joined an organization. A very small organization but very powerful. There are only around 10 to 15 members, but I think that they are all S rank missing. Nins. Sarutobi took several slow drags from his pipe. How can that be possible? I shudder to think of the ego clashes. Who's in charge of this so-called organization? You think Orochimaru would join a group with people weaker than him voluntarily? I said I was guessing. I am not sure of any of this. Another reason for my guess is that Orochimaru seems to have either been expelled or left this group. Not sure which, but all this seems to point to the fact that this group is dangerous. Very dangerous. What is their goal? Another conjecture. I have this spy in an underground organization which puts out bounties. As far as I can see, all they have been doing for the past couple of years is building up their finances. However, recently they have stopped that and are now making forays into different countries. Now we are entering into even more muddy waters. This group made a foray into Takigakure and Iwagakure recently. I have a couple of people in the secretariats of both the villages on my payroll. Both of these forays coincides with the disappearance of a Jinchuriki. I know I'm pushing it here, but I think that they are hunting Jinchurikis. Sarutobi took a while to answer. He approached his desk slowly, filled his pipe, grabbed a lighter, and rekindled it. The probability of this thing being true is very small. This is all conjecture, and that too quite far-fetched. However, I can't ignore it. Though small, the chance that it is true still exists. He gave his pipe a few puffs. Jiraiya, what do you think I should do? Confine Naruto to the village. That won't solve anything. If this group really has S-rank shinobi like Orochimaru, it will be child's play for them to infiltrate and take the kid by force if not by stealth. Hell, other than you and me, nobody else in the village can stand up to a guy like Orochimaru in the first place. No offense, Kakashi. None taken. Getting back to the topic, the best thing would be to make the kid stronger. Strong enough to at least hold him off for a while and escaping. A puff of smoke was released by Sarutobi. Makes sense. Jiraiya, you train him. I'll also put the guards and the Anbu on high alert for this group. Do they have a name? I don't know. I'll try and find out. Yes. And also pay complete attention to this group for now. Forget Orochimaru for the time being. Got it? Kakashi, I want your report by tomorrow morning. Now go both of you. I need to think. If I may, Hokage. Sama. Go on. Well, if we are up against a group of S-rank shinobi, then we need a few of our own. Other than you two, there is one more in our village. Sarutobi's eyebrow went up. You mean her? Yes. Jiraiya. Do you think she will come back? I don't know. I can try. She might agree or she might not. Can't really say. Fine then. Try and find her. Try your hardest to get her back. Sure. Can I take the kid along with me? I can gauge his skill levels and train him as well. He'll be safe with me. Safer than he'll be here anyway. Now that I think of it, that's a good idea. He'll be out of the village while I tell the council about all of this. They will definitely want to confine him. I'll figure something out by the time you get back. Great. That's settled. Hey Kakashi, where can I find the kid? As his pupil exited the room, Sarutobi yelled, Jiraiya. If you corrupt that boy in any way, then I will kill you. Painfully. Got that? Jiraiya shuddered. Eep. He would need to exercise caution when conducting his research on the child. Danzo used his cane to help him walk slowly down the dark hallway. He paused in front of a door and used the end of his stick to knock before going inside. A group of his most reliable Anbu were waiting inside, seated around a big table. What went wrong? He said, taking his usual seat. I instructed you to return with the Jinchuriki. Instead, we now have a potential war on our hands. The team leader raised his voice. The intel we were given proved false. The Iwa team used alternate routes. We were nowhere near enough to be a threat at any point of time. I see, Danzo said slowly after a moment's hesitation. You are dismissed. His soldiers immediately left the room, leaving their commander alone with his thoughts. Danzo was fuming beneath his composed exterior. Someone had betrayed him. His man in Iwa was obviously a double agent now. He needed to clean up a bit. Literally. Particularly in Iwa. The blaring alarm was silenced when a hand emerged from beneath the blanket. Naruto rolled off the bed and pushed off his blanket. He stretched and rubbed his eyes open. His joints popped and screamed in protest, and he cried out in agony. Damn you and that crazy strong chakra of yours. My body feels as if it has been trampled by a herd of crazy animals. You would be dead right now if not for it. Plus it was you who asked me to not lend you my healing abilities. Want me to fix it? Nah. I need to let my body get used to your chakra naturally, and I asked you that because I didn't want to rely on your power. I'll use it if I'm in a tough fight, not otherwise. Suit yourself. Naruto stepped out of his clothes and into his bathroom, saying, "It's okay. It's nothing a warm bath won't cure." As he turned the knob, he hoped that the building still had hot water because it was almost noon. Slowly, one drop of water trickled from the nozzle and landed on his head. He pulled on a towel and hurried out of the bathroom, screaming in frustration. He patted down to the landlord after leaving his apartment. "Oi, you old fart. Your water supply is broken. Fix it fast," he yelled as he violently knocked on the door. A grizzled old man emerged as the door opened, utterly unfazed by his yelling tenant. The man had served in the 2 earlier wars and was now a retired shinobi. In addition to being incredibly fair, he was always crude. Although Naruto had never had the chance to verify it, he had always had a sneaking suspicion that the Jiji had played a role in finding him this specific landlord. "Pay you rent first if you want to get anything, brat, and the next time you scream outside my door, you haven't a tongue to do it again." A sheepish look briefly appeared on Naruto's face. "Fuck. I keep forgetting that the Jiji stopped paying my rent since I graduated. Uma Oshimo.san. I'm a little short right now. Give me a couple of more days. Can I please have some water? I really need a hot bath. Just got backa. Pay your rent if you want water. Tomorrow your electricity goes." Naruto's face was slammed by the door. Damn, how the hell am I going to earn my rent in one day? As Naruto entered the mission assignment office, Azumo raised his head from his papers. "Yo, kid. You've been creating some noise around town. Heard you had a run.in with a couple of you and Nin." "Bumped into a couple," was Naruto's evasive response. "I'll tell you the whole story some other time. Hey, where's Katetsu?" "In the hospital. He got drunk and tried to grope Anko at a party a couple of days ago." Naruto scowled. "Glad I wasn't around to see that. Anyway, I'm running low on cash right now. I thought I'd do a couple of D ranks." "Sure. How many do you have?" Jiraiya's day was not going well. Since his encounter with the elderly man, he had been searching for Naruto. He has only discovered a few hundred shadow clones so far, and none of them appear to be aware of the location of the original. When someone knocked on her door at her house, Sakura looked up from her book in surprise. Hours were expected before her parents returned. She pushed herself from the couch she was sitting on and walked confidently to the door, which she opened. Naruto was the one. "Yo Sakura," he exclaimed with joy. "Naruto, where did you disappear off to that day?" Kakashi. Sensei was really upset. He laughed sheepishly and ducked to avoid the punch she threw at him. "You see, I was really hungry and I couldn't find a place selling ramen no matter how much I looked. By then I was so hungry that I had to have ramen. So I came all the way here to Ichiraku," he said. He said, "It's not good to be violent so early in the day, Sakura," and shut the door. "Early in the day, my ass. It's past noon," he remarked. "It's never good to be violent then," and moved aside to dodge her savage blow. "Stop being annoying. What do you want? How did you know where I live in the first place?" He dismissively said, "Oh, I have my ways," in response to her query. "Sensei mentioned that you have my weapons and the rest of my kit." "Yeah, I have them. Wait here, I'll go get them." She gave his kit to him after a brief visit to her room. "Hey, you want a cup of tea or coffee or something?" "Nah. I'm fine. Never had them anyway, so it doesn't matter. I'm off then. Have some stuff to do." Waving, Naruto turned and started to walk away. "And Naruto, thanks for your advice. You know the things you told me that day. They gave me a lot to think about." Sakura answered the phone. He smiled and said, "Sure, anytime," before leaving. Jiraiya suddenly materialized directly in front of Naruto as he was halfway home. He hadn't sensed him at all. How could such a big guy move? The big tick on his face also gave the impression that he was furious. "Why am I still bothering to look? This must be another one his dastardly clones," he murmured. Naruto said, "I'm the real Naruto, actually." In response, he got a jarring knock on the top of his head. "Ow. What was that for? I have been looking for you since hell knows when. All I have been finding are your damn shadow clones. Why the fuck did you make so many clones?" "I was doing D ranks. I need money to pay my rent." "Are you staying in a palace, kid? Why do you need more money for your rent after your A rank?" "A rank? What A rank? Huh, didn't the old man tell you? Your mission to the wave was upgraded to an A rank. Those pay a lot. although he was quite pissed after Kakashi's report. I hear you took on Zabuza Momochi and managed to survive. Good work. He would appreciate Jiraiya's compliment at any other time, but this time it hardly registered in his mind at all. What? I did all those shit missions for nothing. I'm going to kill that old fart right now. He sprinted in the direction of the Hokage Tower. Jiraiya reached out and caught him by the back of his shirt while giggling. Forget that. We have things to talk about, somewhere more private preferably. Let's go to my house. He fled to the next building as soon as Jiraiya left him, but before he could perform the jutsu once more, he felt a hand firmly grasp his head. Something lifted him up and spun him around. Not so fast, kid. I'm not letting you out of my sight again after all the shit I had to go through to find you. Get back at the old man some other time. Now lead the way. As he entered Naruto's apartment, Jiraiya took in his surroundings. The place was essentially dilapidated. Nothing that wasn't absolutely necessary appeared to be in the child's possession. There were scrolls everywhere, too. Jiraiya looked through some of them while Naruto went to his room to put his bag down. When he discovered a few scrolls containing calculations for a personalized seal, his eyes grew wide. And a specially designed explosive seal. As he read through some of the other things Naruto had written down, he concluded that the child was intelligent. Certainly smarter than he gave the impression. Naruto called back, so what did you want to talk about? Well, your tryst with Iwa has the potential to become a huge international incident, Jiraiya remarked, setting down the scrolls. The council might take this as a chance to confine you to the village for good or a similar drastic measure. The old man wants you out of the village and his hair while he deals with them. So you and I are going on a little trip together. Works for me. When do we leave? With a startled, huh? That's it? You agreed pretty easily, Jiraiya answered. Why the hell would I say no to a trip with Jiraiya of the Sannin? Jiraiya's face broke into a shit-faced smile. He was falling in love with this child. All he could do now was hope the child also ended up being a pervert. It would be impossible to believe. How long do you need to get ready? Not long. I just need a bit of time to let my friends know that I'll be gone. Couple of hours. Yeah. That should do. Shikamaru called out, hi, as Naruto gently touched down on his roof. Yo, good thing I found you. Don't have much time. Shikamaru sat up slowly and asked, what's up? I'll be gone for a while. Mission? No. What then? Training trip. With whom? Jiraiya. The Sannin. Yup. Holy fuck. How? Why? Wella, that's a long story. Don't have that long. Leave a clone. That's brilliant, Shikamaru, Naruto exclaimed. Here you go. I'm off to get Choji. Then I need to get to Guy Sensei, Anko and Iruka Sensei as well. Jiraiya said, this is far enough, and put his pack down. As they stood on a dusty road heading west, they said, come at me with everything you've got. I want to gauge your level. The green treetops had already obscured the sun. It was one of the numerous paths that led through the expansive forest that concealed and encircled the village. A few hours ago, the two had departed the village. Silently, Naruto lowered his pack to the ground and assumed a combat stance. He abruptly vanished after throwing a few shuriken at Jiraiya. A few feet above Jiraiya, he reappeared. Shuriken Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Jiraiya saw a flurry of sharp weapons rain down on her. With a backward leap, Jiraiya easily avoided every shuriken without changing her expression. Just as he touched down, Naruto appeared, both of his swords blazing. Below him, the swords whistled innocuously as Jiraiya leapt once more. In an attempt to impale Jiraiya from behind, Naruto disappeared once more and reappeared directly behind him. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Between them, a doppelganger unknown currency inger of Jiraiya appeared, took Naruto's blow to the chest, and vanished in a puff of smoke. Through the smoke, a hand reached out and grasped Naruto's shirt front. Jiraiya tossed Naruto at the trees with ease and without making a sound. The force of the throw sent Naruto crashing through the first trunk, and then the second trunk stopped him in his tracks. He groaned loudly as he slowly sat up. As he stood up and brushed himself off, he complained, how strong is that guy? He came out of the trees, hefting his swords once more. Jiraiya was anticipating his arrival. That all you got, kid? I expected more from the son of the Yellow Flash. Naruto fell backward and lay on the ground, gasping for air. He had welts all over his body and his clothes were soaked in perspiration. Suddenly, Jiraiya's face blocked his view of the night sky. Nice try, kid. Not bad for someone your age. Rest here. I'll get something to eat. All he got in return was a grunt. Translating that correctly as, go ahead, Jiraiya left for the forest. Naruto examined his battle with Jiraiya while gazing up at the sky. What a monster the man was. He had come very close to using Jiraiya as a target. Jiraiya was quick enough to counter all of his moves and appeared to be able to anticipate them all. As his fatigue overcame him and he fell asleep, he concluded that he needed to recover. After a while, a pleasant scent roused him from his sleep. Near him, a fire was crackling, and Jiraiya was roasting what looked like 2 rabbits. He groaned in agony as he stood up. All his muscles were cramped from his nap. "How are you feeling?" "As if a horse trampled all over me." "Ha ha ha. Eat now. You'll feel better, here you go." Jiraiya started talking as Naruto began gorging himself on the food that was offered. "Firstly, you are way too impatient, kid. You are trying to kill your enemy with every move. Never be hasty. You'll be the first to fall for the enemy's traps, if you fight this way. Think before you attack. Analyze your opponent. Analyze the environment. Develop a strategy. Running headfirst into every situation is going to get you killed really easily. Secondly, your style is no good." Naruto put down his food and listened intently to Jiraiya. "You have a decent shunshin, I accept. However, it's of no use if your body speed is slow. You're playing with the big leaguers now. I can see that you have trained your body really hard to reach this level, but it isn't enough. You need to improve upon it. Your shunshin speed is reasonably decent like I said, but it doesn't matter if your body speed isn't enough to finish the enemy off. Almost all Junin and even a few Chunin will be able to counter your moves right now. You need to get faster if you want this style to work. Thirdly, you know no long range jutsu. You are currently completely a close range fighter. The last problem is the easiest to fix, while the other 2 will take some time. Sleep for now, kid. I'll teach you a couple of new jutsus tomorrow." "I don't fight this way," Naruto responded. "What do you mean?" "Running in head first is the last thing I would do in a fight. You told me to come at you, so I came at you." Jiraiya said, "I see," slowly. "And is this your ego talking here? Butthurt about getting beaten up?" "No," Naruto firmly stated. "I didn't expect anything. Come on, I'm not an idiot. You're a Sanin. I've read about the stuff you've done. I knew I never had a chance in the first place. You said you wanted a measure of my skills, so I showed you my skills. Like I said, this is not how I fight." "I see," Jiraiya said. "Why don't you prove this to me tomorrow?" "Sure thing. If you manage to impress me, I'll reward you with a technique which I wouldn't necessarily have taught you right away. You don't need to dangle a carrot in front of me to motivate me, old man. I don't like losing. You have a lot of personality, kid. Let's see if you can prove it with deeds. Haha, I like that." The following morning Naruto sat up, cursed, and glared up at the elderly man who was smiling down at him after something sharply poked him in the side. He muttered, "There was no need for that. What's the fun in that, then? Fuck you. Kid, you're really fortunate that I'm so kind. For that, any other shinobi of my level would have easily gutted you." As he pushed off his blankets and stood up, Naruto muttered his answer. "What was that?" As he was making breakfast, Jiraiya called out to him. "I said that the Gigi would gut you in turn, if you did that." "Hee. It's true. It appears that the old fart has a soft spot for you. By the way, will you simply blame Kakashi if he ever hears you use such language? He's already pursuing my ass." "Don't be concerned. I have previously used worse in front of him. He cannot hold you accountable for anything." "You did? You got away with it, too. Well, yeah. The fuck? How? It was hell for me to even consider cursing that bastard. There were more pressing matters at hand. You're lucky. Come on now. Consume. We must move forward. Additionally, you must prove your little boast to me. I'd better beat that out of you sooner rather than later." Jiraiya grinned. "Well, this is quite depressing. Konoha, the largest of the villages, is becoming less secure." As he and his companion gazed down at the village, Kisame remarked, "They haven't altered the path past their barriers in all the years you have been gone." "Don't undervalue Konoha," Itachi advised. "So, Itachi-san, do we still harbor some fondness for the village where we were born?" From the corner of his eye, Itachi looked at Kisame. "Nothing like that. The barriers are visible to these eyes. That's all. They've evolved. Once a month, the entry points were switched in my day. Hurry up. Come on. And please, exercise caution. I don't want to have to fight the professor, regardless of his age." "Yes, Itachi-san. That's where you and I differ from one another." As he trailed behind his partner, Kisame responded, "I'm always itching for a good fight." He needed to be calm and focused. If he allowed Jiraiya to get under his skin, he was doomed. Not that he had much hope for victory anyway. His goal was just to get in a hit, no matter the consequences. Besides, Jiraiya seemed to enjoy needling him. There was no need to make it easy. Naruto stared down Jiraiya, and the old fart smiled back at him. With his sights set on the goal, he started making plans, realizing that if he wanted to increase his chances, he would need as much cover as possible to get Jiraiya into the forest. His hand flashed into his pouch and he drew out a standard smoke bomb, which he threw at Jiraiya and blasted off to the right, causing the bomb to explode and release a giant well of thick smoke that completely obscured his target's vision. He then drew out a shuriken, threw it towards the smoke, and made a few hand signs, which caused the shuriken to multiply in number and vanish into the smoke. Naruto hoped that Jiraiya would jump back into the forest to avoid the smoke, but instead he was completely unharmed and charged directly at him, fist raised. Whooping, too easy, whelp, he said. Naruto yelled, slid out of the way, and fled into the forest. His mentor just bundled after him. Well, at least they were in the forest now, and he hadn't expected Jiraiya to take the fight to him. The old man had been quite content to remain passive the day before, which was a direct result of his speech. Jiraiya didn't intend to make it easy for him. Naruto smiled. He liked the way Jiraiya worked. For once, he knew what was going on, whereas with Kakashi, one could never be certain of what was happening. He leapt up onto the trees and slipped into the foliage, creating two clones without making a sound, and then he and his clones split up and fled in different directions, just like he had done with the Iwajunin. Is your only option running? Jiraiya yelled, and all chasing noise stopped as Naruto kept retreating. Just you wait, you old man, Naruto thought. The forest was his territory, and he felt at home there. He was silent, cunning, and lethal among the trees, traits that his trysts in the Forest of Death had ingrained in him. It was the best Fudan technique he knew, and it was very helpful, but he genuinely hated using it because it left a bad taste in his mouth. Naruto jumped lightly to the ground, opened his mouth, and filled his chest with air. Then, focusing his chakra to his lungs, he flipped through a couple of hand signs, grimacing. Fa, Tun Tsunabakuri. Taking a deep breath, Naruto repeated the technique, and when he stood up for a few seconds, he did so with a smile. His dust cloud was now covering everything within a 2-kilometer radius. His clones had completed their tasks, and they were extinguishing themselves. Naruto directed his face towards the ground, opened his mouth, and released the technique. A large stream of wind mixed with dust burst out of his mouth and slammed into the ground. Ricocheting off the ground, the dust cloud rose and slowly began to spread. To his north and south, two similar clouds had propagated and were moving towards his. Since his technique totally blocked out sight and smell, it was nearly impossible to track him as long as he stayed stealthy. He took a pair of goggles from his pouch and put them on, the kind that covered his nose as well and filtered out the dust particles. His skin tingled as he jumped into the trees and approached his prey, his body feeling tingly. Since his chakra permeated the entire dust cloud, it felt like an extension of his body, allowing him to sense and track any living things trapped in his technique, including trees. This was one of the few futon techniques he had been able to find in the public library, making it one of the most basic futon techniques available, but one that Naruto used to the fullest. Jiraiya was exactly where he had left him, motionless. As he started to circle Jiraiya, he made two clones and launched his first attack, knowing that he would be caught if he got close to the Sannin. Naruto was determined not to underestimate the Sannin and risk being caught. His clones broke away and charged at Jiraiya from different directions. The first one took out one of his special explosive tags, fastened it to a kunai, and threw the blade at their opponent. Jiraiya sensed the projectile coming at him and jumped away from it in a split second, avoiding the massive fire. The second clone attacked Jiraiya as he landed, leaping down from the tree with his blades drawn and slamming down on him. Jiraiya was much quicker, and despite his blindness, his senses were still excellent. He stepped in faster than the clone, and delivered a devastating blow to the chest. "You brat, what the fuck is wrong with you?" As the clone exploded too, Jiraiya yelled. Jiraiya was clearly furious, and things were about to get real. The real Naruto smiled, his explosive tags so strong that it was impossible to avoid taking damage if one dealt the killing blow oneself. He must have earned some points for that. He sensed the Sannin getting ready for a move, just as he had expected, but what came next was completely unexpected, and his senses were all jumbled when a huge object materialized exactly where Jiraiya had been standing. "This is what, Jiraiya-san." Coughing a deep, incredibly loud voice, Naruto's cloud was dispersed with each cough, and he could literally feel it shrink as parts of it were forced out of his main body. He cursed and started to climb the tree he was on. A few seconds later, he emerged from his dust cloud and gaped in wonder at what he saw. Singed Jiraiya, who appeared to have lost a portion of his right sleeve, was sitting atop a huge magenta-colored toad that was coughing and waving his dust cloud away in the middle of the forest. "I apologize for the unexpected summons, Gomaken-san. Would you mind removing this cloud of hell?" Jiraiya screamed. "With pleasure," the toad said, removing the massive shield strapped to his back. He used one hand to raise the shield high by its rim and bring it down sharply, which was sufficient to destroy Naruto's technique. Jiraiya yelled, "There you are, you brat," as Naruto watched in horror as the scene played out. A moment later, he snapped out of his reverie and started to run. Itachi and Kisame kept their faces hidden as they strolled down the busy street. "So, what's the plan, Itachi-san? Catch and question a shinobi at random?" "That is not necessary. His name is known to us. I'm going to sneak into the operations building and see if he's in the village. I'll see where he lives if he's here. If he's not here now, I'll find out where his mission is. We can find him while he's traveling by using Samahata." "Oh, recon is difficult. Hopefully, he's here." "Yes, but I ask that you refrain from acting hastily. The idea of being pursued by Anbu for the upcoming weeks does not appeal to me." Kisame let out a sigh. "Good point. We should reserve a hotel room. I'll wait for Thea." Kisame paused to gaze at a man from his past, a man who had been a key player in the circumstances that led to his betrayal of Kiri. The man had a single, long scar on his face at the time, but now he had another one to go with it. Ibiki had been a shinobi for many years, so he had very keen senses, but he didn't even need them to sense the killer intent that had been directed at him. It had been instantaneously suppressed, but it had been clear, and many of the other shinobi had also noticed it. He whirled around, holding a kunai, and looked around. "There, you two, in the red and black cloaks. Get your faces out." The two men who had been leaving halted, and the man on the right slowly turned and raised his head. Ibiki woke up later and recalled seeing only two red eyes. A flurry of weapons flew at the men in the black cloaks as chaos broke out, and Anko, who had been eating dango, heard Ibiki's shout and felt a malicious killer intent. She looked up from her plate just in time to see Ibiki collapse unconscious. One of the two exuded a killer intent and a veritable explosion in chakra, and the man began making hand signs more quickly than her eyes could follow. He removed his hat and yelled, "Sweden! Suijinheki!" and spat out a huge amount of water, which formed a huge wall around the two and blocked all the weapons. She saw blue skin for a moment before the water obscured her vision. Sweden! Shoha Bakusu! Before the water burst forth and engulfed everything in its path, she heard. It was a good thing that Naruto was out of the village, but he could have really used Jiraiya's help right now. He jumped out of his window and left before his Anbu could arrive and start spouting nonsense about protecting him. Sarutobi woke up from his nap when he felt an explosion of chakra. He had never felt this chakra before, but it was monstrous. It was definitely human, but its levels were comparable to those of Anbiju. When the water receded, Kisame and Itachi were encircled by scores of bodies and the wreckage of ruined buildings. Nothing remained within 50 feet of them. Itachi said, "Let's get going before more shinobi get here," and the two of them vanished in two puffs of smoke. Shinobi from the medical corps bustled around him as Sarutobi stood and watched the devastation his village had suffered. He said, "Report," as his secretary approached him. "Hokage Sama, things are better than they appear. Although the Sweden attack was massive, it primarily destroyed buildings and caused little harm to human life. Even though there are many more injured, we have only lost 4 people so far. They're treating the injured. Although the witnesses claim that the attackers attacked after Ibiki-san confronted them, we do not yet have identification on the attackers. He must have recognized one of them, in my opinion. Ibiki. He's where? He seems to have been subjected to genjutsu of some kind. Despite waking up, he is still not fully conscious. He still hasn't been able to provide us with anything helpful. I understand. Keep up the good work and quickly get me something substantial." As she left, the secretary winced a little at Sarutobi's stern tone. Sarutobi scanned the crowd, and when he found the person he was seeking, he approached him. "Kakashi. Hokage. Sama. Find these two using your ninken. Bring Tenzo's group along. You want to learn as much as you can about them while tracking them without their knowledge. Avoid getting involved in combat." Hokage. Sama, about what Jirai? I understand. I don't believe in coincidences, and this is too much of one. I'm sending you instead of an Inuzuka because of this. You are aware of the stakes. He produced a scroll and gave it to Kakashi, saying, "Now go and take this. Use it only if you get into a really sticky situation." Kakashi's one eye widened as he opened the scroll and glanced at it. "Are you certain, Hokage? Sama? I've heard that he won't be overly happy." Sarutobi said, "Then don't get into a sticky situation," before turning to leave. A sheet of cold water was thrown onto Naruto, causing him to wake up with a cry of agony. He then yelled again and attacked Jiraiya, the man who had rudely awakened him, who raised a hand and easily held him at bay. "Enough sleeping, youngster. We have a lot to learn and a lot of ground to cover today." "You mean to say that you were sleeping? It was you who knocked me out. You burned my sleeve. That was the whole point." "Yes, but my point still stands." Though he kept his composure, Naruto's gaze kept searching Jiraiya, seemingly hoping that it would ignite him. "If you ever do that again, then I'll— Oh, don't worry, child. I'm 20 years too young for you to threaten me. Go now and prepare yourself. Once we're moving, I'll teach you jutsu." After Naruto's rage was subdued by those magic words, he fled toward the stream, and soon after, they both started packing up the camp. "All right, listen, child. The Kachiyose Jutsu is the first technique I'll teach you. It's the most basic type of space time ninjutsu. This is the first step toward all of your father's methods if you intend to learn any of them. In any case, you must first establish a blood contract with any animal in order to perform Kachiyose Jutsu. After that, you can use your blood to call them to you whenever you want. You need to use as much chakra as the animal has in order to call it forth. Therefore, the larger the creature you call forth, the greater the chakra drain." "So that's what that toad was?" "Yes, I have the ability to call forth toads. Your father might as well." "I still say it was overkill. Your dust thing was pissing me off." "Duh, enough nonsense. Are you going to overlook that?" All right. How can I create a contract, then? And how can I persuade an animal to agree to a deal?" "That's why I'm here," Jiraiya grinned. "I gave the toad contract to your father. I'm going to give it to you now, too." "Is that all? You simply hand it to me?" "Yes, what were you anticipating?" "I don't know," Naruto shrugged. "Some kind of trial?" Jiraiya clapped his hands together, and a great scroll, with the customary puff of smoke, materialized in his hands. He unrolled it and set it on the floor. "Hee. No, there you have it. We can begin once you sign your name in blood." After taking an inch of his sword out of its sheath, Naruto cut himself on the edge and signed his name. "All right. Watch me now. I'll demonstrate the necessary hand signals for you. You won't need to use them in the long run if you practice." Naruto put his hands together and prepared to do it himself after observing Jiraiya memorize the hand signs by flipping through them. "What is my chakra usage?" he inquired. "Pump as hard as you can. Let's test your ability to call forth a large toad." "You got it," Naruto grinned in response. After concentrating for a moment, Naruto collected as much chakra as he could and executed the jutsu. Another equally enormous purple toad with a coat appeared alongside a massive puff of smoke. As he sheepishly rubbed his neck, Jiraiya thought, "Geez, what a pain. This kid is even more troublesome than Minato." On his first attempt, how in the world did he manage to call forth Gamabunta? What is his actual chakra level? More importantly, how will I deal with Bunta? Since I called him in salt water, he must still be furious. "Itachi." "What?" As he moved from tree to tree through the forests that surrounded Konoha, the Uchiha inquired. Samahada claims to have detected 3 enormous chakra signatures in the area. Additionally, one of them has a fox-like taste. "I'll go ahead and scout. You look after those who are following us. Will you try not to tell anyone within 10 miles? Calm down. When necessary, I can be cunning. To become one of the 7 swordsmen of the mist, you must master the art of silent killing." "You jerk, Jiraiya. This time, where have you called me? I will never again fight for you." Gamabunta yelled. "I told you that the last time, while searching for his summoner." "Hi, Bunta. A long time. It was me who called you." He jerked his thumb in Naruto's direction and said, "This guy was here." "Hi there. My name is Naruto," Naruto said. "What? How can I be called upon by a runt like him?" "Jiraiya, stop fucking me. I am not feeling up to any of your jokes." "Bunta, don't make jokes. This is Minato's son, Naruto. He recently signed the agreement." Gamabunta stooped and fixed Naruto with one of his enormous eyes. "You resemble him exactly. HMPH. Thus, it appears that you have inherited his talent. Then call me again at a later time. We'll close the deal and have some sake." Gamabunta complained. gesturing to Jiraiya with his pipe, and if you summon only when the shit hits the fan like this jerk does, then the deal's off. What? What are you saying? What time does he call you? Every single time he gets into some sort of wild rampage. And at no other moment. Do you mean that he doesn't invite you over for a casual get-together? Jiraiya shifted. You're talking now, child. He teaches Jiraiya something. Jiraiya shifted once more. Rest assured, Gamabunta-san. I'll call you just for enjoyable purposes. Gamabunta laughed and said, you do that, kid, before vanishing in a cloud of smoke. Oh, hurry up, child. The trouble with you is endless. Let's move, Jiraiya complained. Hold on, I have inquiries. Can I call anyone else? What is the number of toads? Do they all have his size? From where do they originate? Slow down, child. As we stroll, I'll tell you. A set of red eyes was staring at them from among the trees, but they were blind to it. Kakashi. One of them is coming directly at us now that they have separated. They were aware that they were being pursued, yelled Pakun as he landed on a branch. Gosh. What would you like to do, senpai? Battle? As his squad also came to a stop, Tenzo questioned. No combat, the Hokage said. Let's prepare a trap and run. We'll catch him and bring him back if he falls for it. We back off until he gives up. If he doesn't, he won't likely return to the village, in my opinion. Hurry up. Let's go quickly. I don't intend to fight him unless it's absolutely necessary, especially if this is the same guy who pulled out that Sweden back in the village. Kakashi. Traps are not necessary at this time. He'll be here soon. Pakun yelled, run while you can. The air around them thickened before the Pakun's words had taken hold. What on earth is this? An Anbu member sobbed. There is mist. He must be a native of Kiri. The Kirikagore no Jutsu is this. This is not good. I've nearly lost my vision. Senpai, what should we do? Tenzo yelled. Tenzo had just finished speaking when they were alerted to a terrible chakra and murderous intent. All right, then I'm leaving. If you live in Kakashi, call me again, Pakun uttered before vanishing in a cloud of smoke. After Ibiki regained consciousness and asked for him, Sarutobi proceeded down the hospital corridor to his room, opened the door, and entered. His torture specialist opened his eyes and gave him a wary look. Who was it? Itachi Uchiha. A guy with this much chakra was undoubtedly an S-ranker. This was no coincidence, it had to be something to do with the group that had expelled Orochimaru. This was not good, and he honestly had not anticipated that they would find Naruto so quickly. Jiraiya cursed when he felt a huge chakra erupt out of nothingness. Is that man human, sensei? How is it possible to possess so much chakra? The child inquired, staring back at the chakra's source with wide eyes. When Jiraiya said, now you know how other people feel when they meet you, kid, she was being harsh. Sheeping, Naruto rubbed the back of his head. Naruto, hurry up. It's time to move. I'm not particularly interested in meeting this guy. Me neither. Itachi felt Kisami's chakra burst, and he blinked. Gosh darn that moron, he sighed, I told him to be cunning. He moved to intercept after sensing that his targets had accelerated significantly and were leaving Kisame. Kakashi raised his Hite.8 and revealed his Sharingan eye. He took out a kunai and looked around, but it was ineffective because the mist was too dense to see anything with his Sharingan. The chakra source was so large that he could not identify it, and the mist was also affecting his sense of smell, which was not good. But he knew that this was the same person who had attacked Konoha, and having witnessed the destruction this man had wrought, he honestly did not want to confront an attack of that magnitude. He yelled, Delta formation, with their backs to each other, the five of them arranged themselves in a circle. We have to find a way to Loka. They jumped out of the way before he could finish speaking because a huge bandaged sword appeared out of the fog and slashed at them. It was large enough to sever all five of them if they let it, and it was suicidal to block something that large and moving so quickly. Tenzo and Kakashi both landed on the same branch. How do you think he's following us, senpai? He is either using sound or he is a sensor. There is nothing else that makes sense. Oh no, in the bloody mist, we are unable to even communicate with hand gestures. From their left came a shriek of agony, quickly followed by another. He is dissecting us as though we were genin. Tenzo muttered, we have to do something now or else we're done. Jumping to the ground, Kakashi drew out a scrolla, the one the Hokage had given him, opened it, set it down, and hit the ceiling array it contained with his palm before gathering his chakra and pumping it into the scroll. Tenzo yelled, Senpai, look out, as the sword reappeared directly behind him. A single furry arm blocked the sword, and there was a puff of smoke. Sarutobi. Damn you. Giving a brat like you my summoning scroll. Monkey King Enma snarled, when I see him, I'm going to kill him. A sense of urgency surged as Jiraiya leapt through the trees, controlling his speed to allow the child to keep up. He was certain he could defeat the man if they were fighting one on one, but with Naruto involved, the fight was skewed in favor of the enemy. Reaching out, he grabbed Naruto by the arm and threw him over his own shoulder, and then, with a burst of chakra to his feet, he increased his speed exponentially. You old fart, what the fuck? Do you think you're doing something? Naruto yelled. Kid, where did you learn to speak like that? Enough of this bullshit. I will send you to Myoboku if we are attacked. Bunta and his toads reside there. There, you'll be secure. You understand? He gave a stern response. Yes, I understand. You didn't need to grab me, even though I understand that we're in danger. Naruto abruptly stopped talking and shut his eyes. Jiraiya. Sama, Kurama.san says that there is a Uchiha nearby and it's not Sasuke. What are you talking about so much? Who the hell are Sasuke and Kurama? As he exploded into a clearing from the forest, Jiraiya snarled. Kurama.san. He is the Kyuubi. He has chakra sense. He claims to feel as though Uchiha is pursuing us, within 100 feet. How is that possible, though? As they exploded into a clearing, Naruto questioned, I thought Sasuke was the last Uchiha. This day was not going well at all, and Jiraiya knew exactly how it was possible. Sarutobi had told him about the boy's connection to the Kyuubi, and he had definitely not expected it to be so helpful. Jiraiya raised his hand, bit his thumb, and let out a dribble of blood, but before he could finish, a shadow flew across the clearing. He gave up on his attempt at the Kachiyose Jutsu, grabbed Naruto, and leapt away just as the clearing burst into flames. Kisame leapt back, melting into the mist upon realizing that his attack had been thwarted, while Enma lifted his head and took a few sniffs of the air. I'm unable to smell him. This is what kind of mist? He inquired. That one isn't natural. The enemy used his chakra to create it, Kakashi retorted. The mist swirled to their right, and Samahata reappeared and tried to cut the three of them in two. Enma snarled and slapped the sword to the ground with his palm, then reached out with his other arm to grab Kisame, who swayed back to avoid the arm. Enma's arm reached into the mist, grabbed Kisame's throat, and started squeezing with deadly strength. In retaliation, Samahata exploded through its wrappings and attacked him with spikes, which bounced harmlessly off Enma's skin. HMPH. I will never be satisfied with those little spikes. You will not benefit from absorbing my chakra either. I have enough to spare and you'll be long dead before you can take it all, he growled. Kisame grinned. Oh, here's where you're mistaken. He wheezed, I don't breathe through my nose. Well, I'll just break your neck then, as though I would allow it. After landing on a tree branch, Jiraiya put Naruto next to him and turned to face the clearing, which was now only a charred crater as the smoke cleared. There's a problem, prepare yourself, child. From the corner of his mouth, Jiraiya uttered those words. What are you saying? Even though it was a very strong attack, it only landed 20 meters away from us. A stationary target would never be missed by someone with that level of attack capability. Something odd is happening. Emerging from the smoke, a man with red clouds adorning his black robe gazed up at them, his eyes red and ringed with 3 tomo each. Jiraiya. Sama. Naruto.kun. I apologize for the fireball. My partner needs to believe that we are fighting, so I had to attack. What's up with Hokage? Sama. With a deadpan tone, Itachi Uchiha inquired.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.